on, it's thinking, okay, now I'm letting you all know that you're being recorded. I've fulfilled my duty.
I don't know how I feel about that.
And then Tammy, whenever you're ready, you can start rolling. And obviously, I wrote this up. You can say whatever you want. Don't get too hung up on saying the things that I wrote for you.
Oh, no, I always like what you wrote for me. So, me. Okay, here we go. Hello, fellow weirdos, and welcome to Horror Through Her Eyes. You've got the Taminator and the Amateur Destroyer here, ready to explore the twisted world of horror and prove that girls enjoy horror just as much as the guys do. And now, please allow me to introduce our very special guest who has just celebrated 12 years on one of his many podcasting endeavors, Land of the Creeps. It's Dave Dr. Shock Becker. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. This is going to be fun. I've been enjoying your podcast.
Well, that means so much to us. You have no idea.
Oh,
yes, thank you.
Yes,
absolutely. And thank you for inviting me on.
Well, I'm sure we'd love to have you anytime you'd like to be on. Anyway, tonight we will be reviewing Dave's pick, Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino from 2007. Dave, please let us know why you picked Death Proof.
Well, I think it fits in great with your theme. I think it is a very strong, it's a female-centric film. It really is. I mean, it's Kurt Russell is, I guess, essentially the star of it, but I don't think... I like the relationships between the two groups of girls in it and the dialogue. And it's Tarantino dialogue, which means it sounds like it could be natural, but it's very stylized.
Yes.
And I think that the actresses deliver it better than I've seen a lot of other people deliver it. I think they did a great job delivering the dialogue. And it's just a fun movie. And I love where it goes, as it unfolds.
Awesome. Well, this was my first watch, and I have to totally agree. I think it's a perfect pick for the show. So, yeah.
Ooh. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as a first-time watch.
What do you guys predict? Do you think I liked it or not? Or did you already look what I wrote?
I didn't. I did not look at what you wrote. I would think. I don't know how much, but I would think you liked it. I think you enjoyed it.
Did you look, Jessica?
I did not look. I'm hoping that you liked it, but I also think that you liked it. But I don't know, because I don't really know where you fall on Tarantino, to be honest. We've never talked about him. So I'm very curious, but I'm hoping that you liked it.
All right. I'm keeping that close to my chest, and you guys will just have to find out.
Ooh, I love surprises.
All right. Do you want to introduce Haunting Headlines?
Yeah, sure. Timestamp is 3:20. All right, so now we're going to get into our haunting headlines. So, first we have the first installment in a brand new reboot trilogy from Lionsgate, and director Renny Harlin is doing The Strangers Chapter 1, which will be available in theaters nationwide on May 17th, 2024. The Strangers Chapter 1 is said to be something of a remake of the original 2008 movie, while its sequels, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, will blaze a new path from there. Our hope is that the two subsequent movies will allow Renny Harlin to get crazy and inject a little more of his personal filmmaking style into the proceedings, because The Strangers Chapter 1 indeed does look to be a pretty straight-up remake of Brian Bertino's 2008 home invasion classic. The first trailer essentially goes through all of the familiar beats, ending with a new, lesser version of the most iconic line from Bertino's movie, "Because you are home" has been replaced with "Because you're here," which doesn't quite have the same punch to it. By the way, I'm reading this line for line from a website. These aren't my personal feelings, and I don't watch trailers. So, after their car breaks down in an eerie small town, a young couple are forced to spend the night in a remote cabin. Panic ensues as they are terrorized by three masked strangers who strike with no mercy and seemingly no motive. Rennie Harlin of Cliffhanger, Deep Blue Sea, and Die Hard 2 fame is directing from a script by Alan R. Cohen and Alan Friedland, who did The Freak Brothers and Due Date. Lionsgate will distribute this worldwide. So how are you guys feeling about this chapter 1 and chapter 2 and 3?
I am just
they've already got three installments planned for this.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be watching it. I am a fan of the first movie, but I don't know. They're remaking things a lot quicker now.
Yeah,
you know, back in the early 2000s, it was like they were doing like The Hills Have Eyes and Dawn of the Dead, which were 70s movies. Now all of a sudden we're remaking movies from the first decade of the new millennium, and it's
I wonder how Bertino feels about it. I mean, why wouldn't they just ask him to do a chapter 2 and chapter 3?
Yeah,
or maybe he didn't want to.
And maybe he didn't want to.
I
Maybe
made
he's moved on and
film. Like, why would I don't need to add to it.
Right. Why would I do that? Yeah.
No, that movie was perfect. This is, you know how I feel about remakes. I'm not excited to hear this, especially if it's just it's like when they redid, what's the cabin one that they redid? Help me.
Evil Dead?
No,
you're talking about Eli Roth's movie?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, Cabin Fever.
Thank you, Cabin Fever.
Yeah, that was a weird one too.
Where he just said, right, it's like pretty much a straight up remake. Like, we don't need that. No, thank you. No. So
it just hasn't been long enough. I mean, then the other ones the other ones are still very relevant. So
right,
certainly not
everybody
dated.
Everybody loves it. Like, why does it even need to be remade? It's just weird.
It doesn't.
Yeah. But
see, I think the thing with remakes, what it shows is they don't usually have a lot of. It's not a courageous move to remake a movie because they pick movies that were a hit the first time around. Mm-hmm. So they want to remake something, but they want to make sure they do a safe bet, something that they think is going to pull in a crowd. I mean, why not remake Plan 9 from Outer Space?
Right.
Or a movie that failed the first time around, and let's see if you can get it right this time, because it failed the first time around and it's not going to pull in a crowd. So if they're going to remake something, they're going to remake something that's noteworthy and it's going to pull people in. So it's never like it that alone makes it almost like it's a dollars and cents decision to do it. It's not like, well, we really didn't do it right the first time, let's get it right this time. No, it's like, it was so good the first time, let's just try to get more money out of it.
Yeah.
100%. Plus, has Rennie Harlin done any? What's up with him? Like, has he done any horror?
Well, Deep Blue Sea.
He did Deep Blue Sea, and I think he took over for Paul Schrader with the Exorcist. Was it the prequel, Dominion? And then there was Dominion. I think might have been the one that was Paul Schrader's version, and then they brought in Rennie Harlin to sort of, because Paul Schrader was making it sort of a very not art house, but it was more dramatic. It didn't have like the horror beats to it. So they brought in Rennie Harlin and they had him do it. Exorcist might have been Beginning or something. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But then they ended up releasing both versions of it anyway. They released Rennie Harlin's and they released Paul Schrader's to theater. So and neither one was well received. It just didn't matter. It just seemed like the story itself wasn't really hitting with audiences or critics. It never does, but with audiences.
Right.
And every time I think Rennie Harlin, he was a cameraman, when he first started in early 1981, there was this movie called Roar with Tippi Hedren and her husband at the time. And it's about 100 lions. They're living with 100. It is the wildest, craziest, freakiest movie you ever want to see. Rennie Harlin was a cameraman on that. He was mauled by one of the cats. They pulled his scalp off and he needed 100 stitches or something.
Oh my God.
But everybody got injured on that shoot. They said no animals were harmed, but over 70 humans were. Who was it? Melanie Griffith. Tippi Hedren's daughter was in it. And she got bit in the, I want to say in the face, and it almost just missed her eye, and she ended up getting a bunch of stitches in her face, and she needed plastic surgery. Because what it is they had like a dozen cats. They brought in like 40 more, but they brought in all of these cats that weren't used to each other. And each one wants to be dominant over the other. So they're fighting like crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just a really bad situation.
Even with
it
house
is
cats,
a wild movie.
it
is a wild movie.
You have to like introduce house cats through like the door for like 2 weeks before you can let them finally meet.
Oh yeah, and that's house cats. We're talking lions and tigers here that they had together. I mean, these things are fighting with each other, and then who's going to break that up?
Right. Especially back then.
Yeah.
Did you talk about this on Considering the Cinema ones?
I think I did. Yeah, I think
like,
it was
yes.
When Joel was on, we were doing Guilty Pleasures.
Okay.
And I talked about that movie. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think I put that on my watch list after you were talking about it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
It's crazy. It's like you're going to watch it, your jaw's going to hit the floor. I mean, because you're just not going to believe what you're watching. And like, who thought this was a good idea?
Right.
But it is a wild movie. It's never boring. I'll put it that way. It's never boring.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah.
Hang on. Speaking of Guilty Pleasures, Cliffhanger. Can we have a moment for Cliffhanger? I love that movie.
Oh, see, so maybe you will like the remake.
No, I won't, but I like Cliffhanger.
Well, not with that attitude you won't, but no, I understand. It's just weird. I feel like I really wonder how Bertino feels about it, because it feels like a slap in the face, kind of, in my opinion. I don't know. It's just weird, but maybe he's fine with it. I don't know. So something I might look into at some point, just out of curiosity.
I mean, if they just announced it, maybe he hasn't had a chance to react to it yet. We might hear a reaction from him if there is one. I would think he has to at least know about it beforehand, before it was announced. But who knows? Maybe he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because all that stuff with like rights and everything just gets so weird and convoluted.
It does. Now, if he was just the director, if he was the director for hire. But no, did he write and direct it? I think he might have written and directed it.
Not positive.
No, I'm not sure either.
I can look it up real quick.
I hate it when I don't have IMDb open, because I know I'm always going to refer to it at some point, and I don't know why.
Come on, computer. Of course, now it's being slow. All right, well, you tell me if you get yours up first, because mine is not coming up for some reason.
I got it here. Let's see. Yep, he wrote and directed it.
Okay.
He did write and direct it. Yeah. That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. They're going to have to credit him.
Something
with at least
like
the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll probably see it, because I like to give it a chance.
I'll just pout.
Me too.
Of course.
I will definitely see it as well.
All right. Well, next in our haunting headlines, fresh off The Haunting and singularly creepy indie, We're All Going to the World's Fair, Jane Schonenbrunn is back with A24's I Saw the TV Glow, which will be releasing only in theaters on May 3rd. Headed to the SXSW Film Festival next month, I Saw the TV Glow first earned rave reviews out of Sundance, and several of them are featured in the film's must-see official trailer. In a world where too many people seem to be following trends and doing what everyone else is doing, Jane Schonenbrunn is undoubtedly a true original. That was clear from We're All Going to the World's Fair, and it's crystal clear watching the trailer for I Saw the TV Glow. Again, I don't watch trailers, so I haven't seen it. Did either of you watch We're All Going to the World's Fair?
I started it and gave up like maybe 20 minutes in, so.
A lot of people liked it, and I didn't get it. And I don't know if it's just because I'm dumb and I don't
that's
get
why.
it. Or if it's just because it's like not entertaining. But for some reason, I'm still intrigued by this. Maybe just because it's A24. So I'm interested for that one. But I did not understand all the hype for We're All Going to the World's Fair personally. It was just like not a lot really happened, so it was a
That
little
wasn't
hard.
A24, was it?
No, that was like
I didn't
super
think
low budge,
that's what I thought.
crazy indie, like so, I want to give them their accolades for making something, of course. It just
Right.
wasn't for me personally, but it seemed to really like hit a nerve for a lot of people, I think it had to do with like suicide and things of that nature, so there was like a deeper level to it that I think people connected with it on. But for me, I was just like, when is something gonna happen? I'm a horrible person.
Yeah, and I haven't even seen it, so.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, next, while everybody awaits for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space video game this June, the cult classic 1980s movie is getting a brand new 4K Ultra HD release from Scream Factory. Scream Factory has announced that they've upgraded Killer Clowns from Outer Space to the 4K Ultra HD format with a 4K Steelbook release coming soon. The 4K Steelbook features brand new art, which you can preview below. This was on Bloody Disgusting, if anybody wants to go and check out, because they also have a bunch of different packaging options that you can choose from, which is pretty cool.
I like when they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it features the original poster art from 1988 as well. The new releases celebrate the 35th anniversary of the beloved horror movie, and multiple different bundles that are available for pre-order on Scream Factory's website include exclusive slipcovers, a retro prism sticker, an enamel pin set, a lobby card set, and more. And these will all be available on May 14th. So
Nice.
that's fun. And then
Yeah, that is.
just a little spoiler for everybody. We're going to be reviewing Killer Clowns next month. So
Oh, cool.
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Another one I've never seen. So,
Oh wow, it's fun. I mean, it's goofy fun, but I always liked it. I always thought it was entertaining, and I really like the song. They have a great theme song for that movie.
okay. All right.
Yes. Like a song that they made just for the movie.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. The moment you've been waiting for. We asked you to submit reviews and ratings, and we actually got more than 5 reviews, but 2 of the reviewers are actually coming on the show already, so they are not eligible for the drawing. Dave Becker being one of them. Thank you for giving us a review.
Thank you,
No
Dave.
problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we asked for a couple of extra reviews, and people supplied them. I'm so happy. So I've assigned each reviewer a random number between 1 and 5, and we're going to ask Mr. Dave Becker to pick a number, and then I will let everyone know who wins. And I have it written down, so I'll show the camera to prove that I'm not a liar.
All right. Let's go with number 2.
All right. Number 2 is our listener, Laura. Whoop, whoop.
Yay, Laura.
Yay,
Yep.
Laura was number 2. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Will this be shown on the YouTube? Okay, good.
Yep.
Yay, Laura. Thank you so much. And I think that Laura might have been our last review. It might have actually been Nicole. But they
she was
came
having
through.
trouble. Yeah.
I know leaving reviews is so annoying because it's like you can't do it on the app and you have to go to the website for different things. And then like you can't leave reviews on some things, like we're hosted through Spotify, but you can't leave reviews on Spotify. That's dumb. You can only do ratings. So It's been dumb. I think all of our reviews are from Apple Podcasts. I asked people, if it's elsewhere, send me a picture because I don't know where else to look. I know it's not on Spotify and not on Overcast, which is the app that I use because you don't do reviews on there either. So
I can't believe Spotify, we let them host us, but they won't
Yeah, we let them host us.
They should be, really.
Oh my God.
They just don't know how lucky they are.
You're so funny. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up Haunting Headlines. So I'm going to have Tammy take us through our Fright Bites. Take it away, Tammy.
All righty. So, Dave,
Yep.
as our special guest of honor, you go first. Tell us what you've been up to lately involving horror, what you've been watching, reading, doing, whatever.
All right. Well, I've been. I actually just recently finished this past weekend. Actually, I going through the films with Tobe Hooper. Started with Texas Chainsaw, and I went all the way up to his Masters of Horror, Dance of the Dead, and it was very interesting. I wanted to see like if there were common themes, and there are. Like there's a little bit of humor in there, but there's definitely like this sort of insanity, this sort of brutal insanity to his movies. You get that in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously, and Eaten Alive, which was his follow-up, which is very interesting because if you're watching Eaten Alive, it looks as if it could be the town over from where Texas Chainsaw was. It's in Texas. And Tarantino took a line from it. I'm not going to repeat it here, but for Buck, and he used that line for the orderly in Kill Bill when Uma Thurman's character was in the coma. He's like, I'm Buck, and I like to, and that's Robert Englund's character in this. And if you get Tarantino's cinema speculation book, he talks about how him and this guy, I guess, who was dating his mother at the time, they went to the movies to see this, and they were cracking up for a half hour at the line. So that's the reason he remembered it and put it in his movie, I'm sure. But then his movies, it's a very different group because then you got Salem's Lot, the Fun House, which I think kind of fits in with, Texas Chainsaw and Eaten Alive. I'm a fan of that one. But then Poltergeist. And, definitely Spielberg had some, I think Spielberg was the one who helped sort of develop the family dynamic. Because one of the best things about that movie is the family and 100%. How much you care about it, That's, you can't, it's horrific because it's happening to this family that you really like.
Yeah.
But it also is a brutal movie at times, and you could definitely see that Tobe Hooper brought that. And then we get into I can't remember. I think was it right after that that it was Life Force. I thought there might have been one in between Life Force and maybe not. Maybe it was Poltergeist then Life Force because he did 3 movies for Canon Films for Golden Globus. Right in a row, and it was Life Force, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and oh god, what was the third one? Life Force. I think I still have that spreadsheet up here. Life Force, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and hold on, I know we'll find it. Invaders from Mars.
Oh,
the remake of Invaders from Mars, the 50s movie.
Yep.
And he did one of the segments in Body Bags, which is really a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah.
And then it's just really diminishing returns because then he did The Mangler, which is not a good movie. And Dance of the Dead, it was okay, but it was an hour. And I think if he had stretched it any more than that, it wouldn't have been okay. I think it was perfect right at an hour. And that's what I saw. And I was just looking for common themes. And it, like I said, there's this sort of, there's a definite like brutality to them. I mean, one of the least gory movies that he made was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You don't actually, it feels gorier than it is. You don't actually see blood or anything in that movie. Once it got to Eaten Alive and those type of films, it started to ramped it up a little bit. Yeah, so that was fun. And right now I'm watching the movies of 1972 that's our next Land of the Creeps. We're looking at horror movies from 1972. And I watched, what did I see today? I saw Night of a Thousand Cats.
I haven't seen that.
I think it's out of Mexico. It is it's an hour and 3 minutes. And it's about a guy who dates women, brings them back to his house, and then murders them, cuts them up and feeds them to these 1,000 cats he's got in a pen in this castle where he lives. Okay. It seems like a lot of trouble to go to. feed some cats. I'm sure there's a better way to feed these cats. Like this is,
Yeah.
I don't know why he said, boy, this is the only thing I can think of to feed these cats. I'm going to have to bring women here and cut them up and throw them into this pen. You know, that I don't know of any other logical option that I changed, but interesting. And what did I? And I saw one called The Other. Now it was listed as a horror thriller. I don't know that it quite reaches either one. It's set in a Depression era small town, and it was directed by Robert Mulligan, who I think is best known for To Kill a Mockingbird. He directed To Kill a Mockingbird. But man, is it a dark movie. I don't know that it's quite horror or thriller, but it is a dark, dark movie about this kid. And he has a twin brother, and you just start learning things about this kid. And man, it just gets darker and darker, and it ends on by the time it's over, you feel like you've been beaten around the head. It's just such a dark movie.
Dang.
But I'd recommend it. But like I said, don't go in thinking it's going to be a straight up horror movie, because it's not. It doesn't feel like that. There are moments of it that even feel more like fantasy or drama than that. But boy, it's a dark movie.
Nice. When you prepare for those episodes, how many movies do you tend to get in for each year? Like approximately.
Fortunately, with the blog, I've already reviewed like about 18 1972 horror movies. So I actually have a list that I have of watching that could very well. I know there's one I'm watching that will make that list because I've seen it before. So this time around, I'm hoping to squeeze in like 40. And
yeah, just squeeze that in.
Top 5. Yeah. But I was able to get I was off of work today, and I was able to get 4 in. So yeah, and I'm trying to remember what the other 2 were, because the 2 that really stuck out were the 2 last ones, which was Night of a Thousand Cats and oh no, actually the other 2 were ones, the Horror Express and Asylum, the Amicus anthology.
I love that movie.
And they had 2 really good anthologies that year with Asylum and Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. Love both of those.
Tales from the Crypt is really strong, and Asylum is really strong too.
Nice.
So,
love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
They're great. Yeah, they were a lot of fun.
All right, me.
Yes,
it's been kind of busy with in horror.
I'm sure you're always busy because you just have like 1,000 podcasts.
I don't know how you do it because I have 2 and I'm tired. Okay, so
it can tend to be a lot, but we don't record. Like we only record every other week for Land of the Creeps, and it's not too bad. Yeah.
Well, we started out weekly and realized that was too bad, and went to every other week. So.
Yeah. Once we kind of
Greg releases weekly. It's just we're not on weekly. It's Bill and I are only on every other week.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Once we decided we're going to do like deep dives for each episode, we're like, okay, if we're going to like write up these meticulous notes going into every single scene, we should probably just do every other week.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it gets to be a lot. It gets to be a lot if you're going to be doing it every week. It really does.
Plus, trying to keep up with all the social media that didn't have to think about that. I mean, even when I first started on Horrorcast, there was we had Facebook and that was it. Now, I don't know, Jessica, we've got 5 things that we have to try to keep up with. It is just a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, yeah.
I know, there's a ton.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, I don't have a ton, but I watched a new Indonesian horror film on Netflix called Susuk. I'm guessing how to say that. I really like this. A little synopsis is Laris, a sex worker who uses magical amulets called Susuk, wants to mend her relationship with Ayu, her younger sister. However, Laris experiences a tragic accident that leaves her on the verge of death. Her body starts decomposing like a corpse. Accompanied by her friend Armand, Ayu seeks various ways to heal Laris. They return to the village where Laris's mother was born. The terror worsens and brings disaster upon the villagers. So I had to look up what Susik was, and apparently, or did either of you see this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Susik is this belief that they put like it can make you more beautiful or more successful, and these women have these, it's some kind of black magic, but they're these little metal rods, and they have them inserted by like a shaman under their skin, and it's supposed to make them look more beautiful. But I guess there's some like amount of like shame associated with, they call it wearing Susik, and I guess there's some kind of like shame. So this mother and then her daughter goes on to do it. They kind of get like ostracized by their village, and like, so the thing about the Susik is if you die with these rods inside of you, your body will decay, but you cannot die. So she dies, but the sister is like able to like take the body from the hospital or whatever. And they're trying to like find a way, you know, can we break the spell? And since she's like technically still alive, you know, can we like keep her alive and get this Susik out from under her skin? So it was just really interesting, and there's just some really good dynamics between the sisters and stuff, and there's kind of like some mannequin horror in here, which I like. So I would recommend it if you don't mind, you know, the having to read the subtitles. I know not everybody likes that, but I would actually recommend that one. And then on Sunday, Landon, my son, and I watched Aliens from 1986 because he had never seen it, and we were just looking for something. I know.
What did he think? What did he think?
Oh, he absolutely loved it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
They have a new 4K of that coming out.
Oh, really? Okay.
In a couple months. Yeah. Yeah, they're putting a 4K out of that.
Oh, well, it was good. I hadn't seen it in a while, and so it was good to see it again. And then yesterday we watched Carrie, 1976, just because. And then I just started reading How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, and I'll give a brief synopsis in case anybody's interested. Grady Hendrix takes on the haunted house in a thrilling new novel that explores the way your past and your family can haunt you like nothing else. When Louise finds out her parents have died, she dreads going home. She doesn't want to deal with her family home. She doesn't want to learn how to live without the two people who knew and loved her best in the world. Most of all, she doesn't want to deal with her brother Mark, who never left their hometown, gets fired from one job after another, and resents her success. Unfortunately, she'll need his help to get the house ready for sale because it'll take more than some new paint on the walls and clearing out a lifetime of memories to get this place on the market. But some houses don't want to be sold, and their home has other plans for them. So I'm like
Nice.
a third of the way through, and I'm definitely enjoying it. So yeah, that's all for me. Jessica, take it away.
Wait, what did Landinator think of Carrie?
He didn't watch that with me. I watched that by myself.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you had showed him that one too. I was just wondering from like a boy, because my daughter loves that movie, but like, you know, she's a girl and I feel like that's a given. So I was kind of wondering what a teenage boy would think of Carrie.
You know, I took him last year, so he would have been 14. I took him to see Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. And I could tell he was a little like, you know, so I don't,
a little uncomfortable.
He's at that age where he's funny about stuff. So yeah, I just maybe we'll try it when he's 20 or something. I don't know. Just right now he's like does not want to even, you know.
Yeah, next to mom especially.
Yeah, no. So
all right. Well, for me, I went and saw stop motion in the theater. They only had it in the theater for a week out here, and it was only in Regal theaters. So I was really glad that I got to go and see that, and I was paying attention. And this is by Robert Morgan, and I know he has a bunch of shorts, which I haven't gone and like looked for yet, but I really want to go and watch all of them. And I think that this movie is based on one of his shorts too. So he does all these stop motion short movies. I think this is his first like full length movie, and it's not all in stop motion. There's just like certain scenes that are in stop motion.
I was gonna say that would take like forever.
Yeah.
Right.
It takes a long time. Yeah.
It's an hour and 30 minutes. So yeah, that would have been quite the project. Although I was expecting there to be more stop motion. But that was just like an expectation I had. It doesn't make it like worse that there was less, you know, because like we're saying.
It's not like it's in the title.
I know, right? Exactly. I know. I wanted him to be working on this for 20 years, like what was it, Mad God or whatever. But
Right.
let me see if this follows a stop motion animator who struggles to control her demons after the loss of her overbearing mother. So I think I'm trying to think of how to say this. I think there's this kind of like underlying story that they never touch like right on the nose, which I really appreciated. So we can see that this main character is struggling with something, and it might be something that's even hidden from herself, like a past trauma or something. And they never just straight up tell you what it is, but you kind of go through this weird artistic journey with her as she's kind of like finding herself and her voice. Because the beginning of the movie opens with her working for her mom, and her mom has arthritis, and she also does stop motion films, and she's kind of like a big deal, I guess. Like everyone knows about her work, and she's trying to have her daughter complete this last film for her before she passes away. And you can tell that they have like a strained relationship, but they never go like too deep into these different like story elements. But it still felt all cohesive to me, and I like that they didn't over explain everything, you know.
Hmm.
So at the end of the movie, like it could have gone longer, and they could have just like pulled everything together for you and shown exactly what had happened in her past that made her this way. But I was glad that they didn't do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So is it horror or not?
Yes, it's definitely horror.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, I guess I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be like more metaphorical instead of literally happening, but it doesn't, there's nothing to indicate that to me, that it's all just like a metaphor. So I think that you can definitely see it as horror,
Right.
even if it was metaphorical. I think it's really creepy. Like all the stop motion stuff is so like creepy and unnerving, and just like very unsettling. I really enjoyed it. And my husband actually went and saw it with me. I thought it was something that he totally wouldn't be into, and he really liked it. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
great.
So that was really cool. And just seeing something like that in the theater just makes me happy that that was even an option. So, yay
Wow.
for that.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah. I also watched not something new, but I watched Rose Red because it's on Hulu and I haven't seen
Yeah.
it since it first came out.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I want to watch Rose Red. I've been wanting to like go back and watch that again. So I did. And I really liked it. I mean, it's like very of its time in
Yeah.
a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but I like it. And I always like the kind of crew that comes out of Stephen King stories,
Yes,
and
for
just
sure.
like the characters all feel very like fleshed out, and you feel like you know who all of them are, even if they don't play that big of a role. And I just really enjoyed it again still. So that was fun. I like binge that for a day or two. And then the only other thing I did watch that's new is a movie called Killer. It's like Kill Her, but no space. Um, and it follows Maddie and her friends who go on a weekend trip to the woods to plan Maddie's wedding, which is settled near the camp of Mr. Rogers. And with no phone signal, their trip starts to turn into a bad idea when they start dying and a secret is revealed. So this is directed by Robin August. That doesn't sound familiar to me. Let me see. Okay, they've got some stuff under their belt, but nothing I've ever heard of. So, let's see. And they've got some like horror shorts. Yeah, this might be like their first full-length horror movie, it looks like. Um, but it's fun. It's definitely like kind of trendy and hip, especially with the way the camera moves and the dialogue. We're following these young women. They're probably like in their early 20s or something. Um, and it's a little cringy to be honest, but it wasn't completely terrible. There's like some wokeness, but not too much. And the gore is good. The kills are good. It's fun. It's more of like a light, fun thing to watch. It's not like serious at all. And the characters are kind of cool. So, yeah, I would recommend if you're in the mood for something light and you're just trying to find something like new that's not gonna make your brain hurt. I would recommend this. It was a fun little one.
It's on my short list, so I'll probably watch it soon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's the kind of thing I probably wouldn't like revisit it, but I'm like glad that I got it in for the new year or whatever. So not terrible at all. Yeah, so those are my watches. So, Tammy,
Yes.
would you like to lead us through our Echoes from the Abyss?
I would love to. I hope this year isn't turning into another where Not Terrible makes our top 20 list. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't know. There's like stuff coming out that I'm really excited about, and I feel like that wasn't really true of last year. So I'm hoping even that is an indication of better movies, hopefully.
Some interesting thing. Yeah, Maxine comes out, which is part 3 of that Ty West, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, I know.
I'm so excited.
Yep. And Nosferatu coming out in December, which will be really interesting. But
like the only remake I've ever been excited for.
Yeah. Every year, it's the movies that we won't have heard of yet that end up making the list. The ones that are bought at all of the film festivals, they get bought and they get released, and they're the ones that usually make the list. It's not usually the ones like the big announcements. I mean, sometimes they are, but for the most part, like when you're looking at the top of the list, I mean, it's movies that in January I hadn't even heard of, or the first part of the year I hadn't even heard of them. And that's one of the cool things I think about horror is that can happen. That you can just get these movies that that are not so much a mystery. I mean, it's just that they're just making the circuit. They're doing the film festival circuit now, and then someone's going to see it. They're going to release it, and it's going to sort of blow everybody away.
Yeah. I feel like Godzilla actually kind of did that last year.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden it came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, I don't know about this Godzilla. I know about the other big Hollywood Godzilla, but I didn't know about this one. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. And then everybody was like, oh my God, it's so good. And they weren't lying. Like, yeah.
I did not see it. I can't wait to see it. I hear it's like the best. I was a fan of Shin Godzilla. I really liked Shin Godzilla and how they handled Godzilla, like crawling out and just watching him evolve into what he became. I thought that was probably my favorite of all the recent ones. But from what I understand from everybody, I've even heard people who said they went in with like limited because when it's hyped that much, it's usually a disappointment. And they said, no, it was not overhyped. It's exactly as good as everybody is saying it is.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it is.
Nice.
Yeah. And I went and saw it in black and white. So I saw it twice in the theater and I was like, this is so cool.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. I hope it gets a home video release at some point.
Yeah,
so I'd love
me
to
too.
pick it up.
Oh my God, yes. All right, Tammy, sorry we distracted you.
No.
Or interrupted you, rather.
I want to take as much advantage of David while he's here as we can. All right, so
sometimes I get way off on a tangent. So don't be afraid to say shut the hell up, because sometimes Jay and Greg have a way of reeling it in, without saying shut the hell up, but saying shut the hell up. They have a way of sort of reeling it back in. So don't be afraid to just cut me off.
No,
we're awful at reeling it in.
We have put out a 4-hour episode before, so I'm more afraid like you'll be like, whoa. Guys, seriously.
No, that's usually what happens with Land of the Creeps. It's funny, every time we start, it's like, this one should be a quick one tonight. It's probably be like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then it ends up going 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I got to take a lot of, I got to take my share of the blame for that, because sometimes, like I said, I don't shut the hell up. So,
we don't want you to shut the hell up.
Well, I'm sure there are some people who want me to shut the hell up, but I'm sure once it hits 11:30 at night, I'm sure Greg and Bill want me to shut the hell up, and Pearl wants me to shut the hell up. But,
okay, maybe them, but definitely not.
Yeah, if it hits midnight, you're going to be like, okay, shut the hell up. We're ending this.
You're in the right place. Okay, so Echoes from the Abyss. So our last episode was all about evil, and our listener Nicole Trewick said, Jessica, there's like I have to talk nice about myself. I hate this. Okay. Nicole Trawick says, another great episode. And I love.
It wasn't intentional. I just copy and pasted. Sorry.
I love watching you guys on YouTube. Tammy, your hair looks so pretty. That's a great color on you. Thank you very much. So I finally finished Night Country after listening to this. I paid special attention to the music. I wasn't noticing at first, but I agree there was some weird choices. Yes, there were. Many I didn't know, probably newer music, but in one episode it went from Casey and the Sunshine Band to Spice Girls, then the Beatles. Didn't always make sense, but I do love Billie Eilish, and I think the theme song is very fitting. All that aside, I loved the show. I thought the first season was great, but this is now my new favorite. Agreed. Jodie Foster is always incredible. She's one of my favorite actors, and this is one of her best roles. I'd never seen Callie before, the other lead, but I guess she hasn't done much. She was a boxer before acting. Oh, I didn't know that, but I could totally see it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dave, did you watch this?
I did not. No, I did not get to see this, but I heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot about it, and is it good? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, good. So good.
Yeah, it's
10 out of 10.
It was written and directed by the lady who did Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Yes, I heard an interview with her on the podcast. Joe Dante, the one Joe Dante's on, the movies that made me. They had her on as a guest, and she was talking about a lot of the movies that sort of influenced her. And once I heard that Tigers Are Not Afraid, that is such a good film. It's so good.
Yeah.
All right, but she did a great job too. I've heard people hating the what? I've heard people hating this season, and the biggest complaint is that the leads aren't likable. Well, they're not supposed to be. Like, that's their whole thing, which I call BS, but it does bring up an interesting conversation. I don't think that McConaughey or Harrelson were particularly likable in the first season, but no one mentions that. That is very true. Are they given a pass because they are men? The whole men are assertive leaders while women are bitches or difficult. No, I didn't always like or agree with the leads, but I found them relatable. Once you found out about their past, their personalities made a lot of sense. I don't need a protagonist to be sweet or perfect to root for them. I just don't want them to be one-dimensional, which they accomplished. And that ending, the reveal, I was cheering. Yes, so was I. Oh, God. So good.
Yeah, but I mostly wanted to include this because that's such a good point. Like, McConaughey and Harrelson are both very loathsome in that first season. I still love their characters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, McConaughey's character in the first season might be one of my favorite characters of all time if I had to put together a list of like top 10 favorite characters or something. But he's like he has a lot of issues, you know what I mean? He's not personable.
Yeah.
But and I responded to this on Facebook just saying that the thing that they all seem to have is drive. You know, they're not likable, but they're all driven by some crazy thing, that pushes them to be the people that they are. But I just thought that was such an interesting point. Yeah, those two guys are totally not likable. Harrelson's like cheating on his perfect wife. And nobody talked about, I mean, maybe people did talk about it. I wasn't part of the conversation at that time, so I can't say that, but I just thought it was an interesting point, so I wanted to include it.
Oh, I mean, this season is full of incredibly unlikable people, but to have two women, I think this unlikable, it's kind of different. And they are, I guess you could say, like, why women like that get called bitch for these reasons, but they also were like the only two that weren't like crooked, and I don't want to give like too much away, but like the only two that were like upstanding, down deep, even though they had a lot of issues, they were like two of the most upstanding people in the whole entire series, except for maybe like the cop's son. I really liked him too, but I don't want to say too much because I know there's people who haven't seen it, but
like Dave.
I didn't I didn't think about that, but that is a really good point. But I had never heard that anyone was hating on it, and shame on them, blasphemers, if they were.
I agree. I mean, to each their own, I guess.
I guess, but oh, good. Well, now we're gonna fawn over Dr. Shock a little bit here. So, Moving forward, Nicole Gins, and this is about tonight's episode for Death Proof. Dr. Shock is awesome. This will be a great show. I actually recently rewatched Grindhouse. I like Planet Terror, but have to be in the mood for it. But I love Death Proof. It has a great 70s feel. Kurt Russell plays such a good villain. I always enjoy him, but more importantly, we have some beautiful kick-ass ladies. I hope you enjoy it, Taminator. It's a wild ride. I hope I enjoy it too.
Still withholding information.
Yep, still withholding. Yeah, maybe I lost my notes on purpose. Mike Merriman said it's an excellent movie. Agree. Dan Johnson said Dave Schock is easily my favorite podcaster.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, we have very similar taste in films. I also love a very wide variety of movies from Blazing Saddles to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So.
Awesome.
Well, Van said, love me some Grindhouse. Travis, a.k.a. Shongles on TikTok. Feel like it was Tarantino unrestrained and that night might not be the best thing. The ending was satisfying, but the brutality leading up to it felt very fetishistic, much like the Terrifier films feel to me. I know that feeling he's talking about. I do. And I get it. But I think in Terrifier and in here, it works. That's just my thought. So.
Me too. I love Terrifier.
It's like, do I need to feel bad about liking that? Like, do I need to go take a shower? You know, when it gets done and you're like, I don't know how to feel.
Right.
I feel like in both films, they go out of their way to make the characters like so over the top and absurd that it makes it okay. You know what I mean? Because it's clearly not that realistic.
Yes.
Right.
Like when Kurt Russell's crying like an absolute baby and the girls are taunting him and stuff, like it's so over the top, you know what I mean? But we do know Tarantino's a little weird fetish person in general. Which we'll talk about in a minute here.
How you know it's Tarantino, right?
Yep. A lot of shots of feet in this movie.
Yes,
of course. All right. Well, now that we're done with our Echoes from the Abyss, we'll get into our review. But first, I just want to remind everybody that our podcast is a spoiler-filled podcast. So this is your warning.
Spoiler alert.
So we're going to spoil this.
All right.
So Death Proof is half of the Grindhouse double bill, which contains two thrillers that recall both filmmakers' favorite exploitation films. Grindhouse, which was a term for downtown movie theaters in big cities, particularly New York, in which their glory days were known for grinding out nonstop double bill programs of B movies, is presented as one full-length feature comprising two individual films helmed separately by each director. Death Proof, which is the movie that we'll be talking about tonight, is a rip-roaring slasher flick where the killer pursues his victims with a car rather than a knife. Death Proof was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It's rated R and runs at 2 hours and 7 minutes, starring Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike, Sydney Tamila Poitier as Jungle Julia, Vanessa Ferlito as Arlene, Jordan Ladd as Shanna, Rose McGowan as Pam, Marcy Harriel as Marcy, Zoe Bell as herself, Rosario Dawson as Abernathy, Tracy Toms as Kim, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Lee. Also stars Eli Roth, Quentin Tarantino, of course, and the wonderful Michael Parks. Rest in peace. So, as per usual.
Is Sydney Tamia Poitier like related to Sidney Poitier?
I'm thinking yes. I don't know how, but I'm thinking probably. That would just be one hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. You know what? Well, again, I could look that one up pretty quick.
Let's Google
it. She is the daughter of Bahamian actor Sir Sidney Poitier, and Canadian actress Joanna Shimkus.
Well, there we go.
Is that who you guys were talking about?
Poitier's daughter, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir Sidney.
Sir
Get
Sidney.
it right. I'm just kidding. I say everybody's name wrong. So who is that guy? What do you guys know him from? Is he like a big
Sidney
actor back in the
Poitier?
day? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was I think the first African American to win an Academy Award. He was in like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with
Love
Spencer
that movie.
Tracy and
Yeah, I love that
Katharine
movie.
Hepburn. He was in a lot really good movies. I think Raisin in the Sun. Um,
Is he
yeah.
in the heat of the night?
In the Heat of the Night, yes, that's another one. And I don't know, maybe he won the Oscar for that. I can't remember. I know he won the Oscar for either that or Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And he was. See now I'm talking. Now I got to go through her to get to her father. Now I want to know because I know he won an Academy Award. I'm thinking it was for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
I think it was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I've got to.
Go ahead and fact check yourself. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I got to do here. I just want to make absolutely sure. But he was also in like oh God, what was the one I watched? No, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I don't remember it. And I don't even know how the hell to find it. All right, let's see. Sidney Poitier. Yeah, won one Oscar. And because I wasn't sure, I know it was later on, and I'm thinking it was that. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Geez, my internet's been quick all night, and now there we go. Winner. No, he won for Lilies in the Field, Best Actor. The Academy Award. That's the one he won, and he won. Well, he won an honorary award also. So no, I was wrong. He was nominated for the Defiant Ones. Boy, I don't know why. I thought
that's what I thought too. So
I thought he won like it was later on, but Lilies in the Field. He won Best Actor for Lilies in the Field. Yeah, he's a great actor. He really is. He was in Blackboard Jungle, I remember back in the 50s. It was one of the first movies I had seen him in because I saw that when I was younger. And just a great actor, an amazing actor. So yeah.
That's so cool. I wonder.
It's very strange that that's his daughter. She looks like he was born in. What does it say here? I know he just died in 2022.
Oh wow!
And he was born in 1927. It's kind of interesting that this movie was made when he was 80, and that's his daughter. She does.
He must have had her at like 50 or 60.
Yeah, I mean I think Charlie Chaplin did the same thing. I think he had a kid when he was like in his 70s or something. So
yeah.
Okay.
Jessica, have you ever seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? You should see it if you've never seen it. I think you would like it.
No, but I will.
It's a good movie. Yeah. It's a good movie.
Nice.
So is In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah.
In the Heat of the Night is a good movie. Is really strong as well.
Yep, I agree.
I wonder if Tarantino specifically sought her out, being a big Hollywood buff.
And he's a fan of Poitier too, because you look at some of his favorite movies that he lists, and like To Sir with Love, and a few of other Sidney Poitier's movies are in there. So
okay,
it's possible.
That is so cool. Yeah. Wow, we haven't even gotten into the movie yet.
Right.
We already have all this.
I don't even think we finished the cast yet.
I finished the cast.
Oh,
I didn't
okay, fine, okay,
every single
all right,
person, but
very good.
Just main players. Although I didn't add Jonathan Logren, is probably how you say that, as Jasper, who's the creepy farmer mechanic guy in the second half of the movie. I love that guy. I just wanted to bring him up with his laugh. All right. So we begin with feet, of course. Pretty pedicured feet that are happily tapping to a beat while resting on the dash of a car, while the opening credits roll over them in big yellow 70s font. And now we know Tammy likes it.
Well, I'm just going to insert one little thing here. At that moment, I'm like, oh my God, it's 1970 whatever. And I'm in the back seat of my parents' car at the drive-in, and the grown-up movie has come on, and the kids are supposed to be sleeping. That's just what it reminded me of. So.
That's awesome.
Nice. Awesome.
I noted that the music that's playing can only be described as the perfect opening music for this movie. We quickly get a black and white title card that reads Death Proof before cutting back to the feet. And then we cut away to a beautiful tall black woman pulling a shirt down over her head, and she walks into her living room, lays down on the couch, and takes a hit off her bong. She's so beautiful.
And did you
She
notice
is.
that how he positioned her, just like the
Yes,
picture in the back?
that
She's
was in
laying
my
in that
notes
couch,
I
just like
lost.
I wanted. Oh God, trying to remember. That actress. No, never mind. Just I don't remember. I'm trying. I'm not 100% sure, but I was thinking it was. Oh God. She was in the Breathless with the Jean-Luc Godard Breathless and Bonjour Tristesse. This is awful. I can always remember the movies and I never remember the name.
That's so funny.
Now I gotta look up Breathless.
Gene Seberg?
Gene Seberg, yes. Gene
Seberg?
Seberg. That's who I think it is. I'm not 100% sure. But it looked to me to be Gene Seberg, but I might be wrong about that. But that's who it looked like it was to me.
Nice. Yeah, and I put a note in here for me to look up all the posters that are in the apartment because they kind of cut to all these different scenes, and like
Yes.
every wall has a cool poster from an old movie, and I totally forgot to do that, of course. But I'm sure someone's done that. You guys go look it up for me and then report back. All right. And then our POV changes to that of a car dash riding through the countryside, but it's of a different car than the one that we just saw with the feet, and it's driving faster and more haphazardly. We rejoin the beautiful black woman who's Jungle Julia. I always do this where I don't put their name until they introduce themselves, but this is Jungle Julia that I'm referring to. And she looks down out her apartment window to find a couple of her friends, one blonde and one brunette, who have just parked out front. And the brunette, who we're going to come to find is Arlene, hollers to her friend that she needs to pee. And she runs up the stairs to her friend's apartment while literally holding her crotch like a child, which I just thought was funny. It's like, does that actually help? I don't know I did that when I was a little kid and it felt like it helped. So, but I don't know. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, but when you're a little kid, that's what you do,
Right.
Because you think it's helping. Who knows if it is?
I'm signaling to the adults to point me in the correct direction. So it was kind of funny. And her friend's worried about being late. Jungle Julia, that is. And then we find out from the text on the screen that we are in the city of Austin, Texas. The three girls are now driving through the city, and we soon find out that the black woman that I've been referring to is Jungle Julia, and she has billboards throughout the city, for which the group of girls call out "Woo!" whenever they pass one. It's a kind of game. They're like heading to a bar, and they have to do a shout out for each billboard that they see. And this is because Jungle Julia is a DJ on a local radio station. So that's why she's got all these billboards. And they're fun because she's like in different costumes in each one. And I watched a little bit of a video where Quentin is talking about that and how they had fun just playing dress up and shooting all these pictures. And Arlene, let's see. Oh, yeah. Arlene and Shanna are trying to figure out who scored weed for the evening. They assumed that Julia was going to be the supplier, and Julia's pretty fed up because her friends need to surprise her with supply for once. And Shanna calls her a mean girl in a high school movie and asks if she's done throwing a tantrum. Uh, and then Shanna asks Julia if Chris Simonson is going to be there tonight, which she confirms. When Shanna explains to Arlene who Chris is and how he has a big thing for Julia, Julia makes bitter remarks about how he would be if he did really have, let me see. Oh, of how he would be if he did really have a thing for her, such as calling her on her birthday. And this is funny because this is also kind of mirrored in the second half of the movie with another character. But and then they talk about who else they plan to meet up with. And Julia asks Arlene what happened with Nate last night. Arlene enlightens the other two that they just made out on the couch for 20 minutes and didn't do the thing, which she defines as everything but when Julia asks, "Excuse me for living, but what is the thing?" And that's why I've like put in detailed notes about like useless conversation. Is just this is when we get the very funny and stylized conversational dialogue that Quentin Tarantino likes to do that always makes you feel like you know these characters better. It like gives them their character, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
Um and then Shanna asks if boys like the thing, to which Arlene replies, "They like it better than no thing." The girls laugh and they continue to interrogate Arlene about her night with Nate. After we watch the car drive off screen, we linger for a little until we see the other black car drive on screen. And I forgot to look up what kind of car this is. That probably would have been helpful. But this is going to be our quintessential death-proof vehicle. So, just based on the opening, how are you guys feeling about this group of girls so far?
I'm in love. I'll tell you that much. I was just like, I love this. And do you notice how the girls in this, it seems to be like a kind of like a theme. They put a time limit on all the different acts of making out. Like, later it'll be 6 minutes or 8 minutes or something. Now she's like, well, we made out for 20 minutes, and it's like,
Yeah.
like, does that mean it must mean like, then it wasn't bad if we only did it for 20 minutes or 8 minutes? It's like, that's the limit before then it might go past doing the thing. I don't know. But I just loved the dynamic. I loved the dialogue. I loved how they looked. I just loved everything. So I'm on board right away.
Yes.
And me too. I am too. I thought it was. Again, the dialogue is great. It's very interesting, and the feel of the movie, though, it really feels like a 70s grindhouse film. It really does.
Yes.
And I love that about it. I absolutely love that about it. I thought he did a really strong job. Even when it comes up with like the title, it says thunder something and boom, then it goes that like you were saying, that the screen just death proof, just it had another title initially and then they changed it to death proof. No, I'm really into it at this point because I liked Planet Terror too, but Death Proof felt more like a 70s grindhouse movie, I thought, than Planet Terror did. It's almost like Planet Terror was sort of a spoof of a grindhouse movie, where this is living in that universe of a grindhouse movie.
Ooh.
And I really loved it. I loved, and again, yes, you're really into the characters there, because what they're saying is just interesting, and it just harkens back to like John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson sitting in the car talking about Big Macs and just talking about
I can't remember
it's about putting mayonnaise on fries and things like that. You don't even know what they're going to do at this point. You don't know anything about the characters. And that's one of the cool things about Tarantino. And he did that with Reservoir Dogs. They're sitting around this breakfast table and you're laughing at what they're saying. You don't even know why these guys are together. You don't know anything about a heist. You don't know anything about the movie at that point. And you don't know what John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson are driving to do, because they're just having a normal conversation. That's what's happening in this movie. And it feels like it. It's stylized. It is definitely stylized Tarantino dialogue, but it feels like it just feels natural that this is like the sort of conversations they would be having. And I love it. I do.
He doesn't waste any dialogue on exposition. Jessica, remember we were talking about Lisa Frankenstein, how I said that I felt like they went to Party City or whatever and got all the props to make it look like the 80s. This is like the opposite of that. Like, it really felt like the 70s, and it just, it was so good.
And it's funny because it's not the 70s, because she's on a cell phone.
I know.
It feels like it's the 70s.
Yes, I know. I'm like, no, not a cell phone. Don't take me out of the 70s. I'm having such a good time, but yeah.
Right.
It's a really crappy old cell phone. Does that help?
Yeah, that's true.
Watching her text was painful.
Yeah.
That's true, right. I had one of those sometimes, and boy, you get some very interesting text messages with those things. And it takes forever to send a text.
That's
Although
so
it takes
funny.
me forever too, because I hate those small little keyboards. I'm always hitting the wrong, you know,
Yeah.
hitting the wrong
Yeah,
button, and I got to go
Yeah.
back anyway. But
it's
Uh,
great. Oh, yes. Love
This is
it.
almost like it follows where I know there's a cell phone, but it also like when is this really supposed to be taking place?
it's
Because
modern day. I think it's modern day. It's just it has that. It definitely. I mean,
yeah,
because of that vibe, you feel as if it's the '70s. You really, really
yes,
do.
yep, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and I wasn't around in the 70s, so I can't vouch for how good that is, but for me, it feels it feels authentic to me, a person who wouldn't know any better.
Right.
And so I refer to you guys, the experts.
I,
So
I, well, I mean, I was lucky enough to see. I saw Jaws 2 at a drive-in. It was on a double feature with Roller Coaster. Now I fell asleep for Roller Coaster, but I made it through Jaws 2, and I was I was 8 years old at the time, and it pretty much scared the hell out of me. Like it really scared the hell out of me. Um, but it did have its own feel to it. I mean,
Mhm.
looking back on it now, when you're living in the '70s, you're not thinking, "Wow, this is so '70s," you know. But
yeah.
when you look back
Right.
on it, it's you know it definitely had a look, and I think
Yeah.
this movie, and man, it just gets it. And I love how she's texting, and then the romantic music comes on, and then boom, just
Yes.
stops, just
Yep.
like cut, just
I
like
love
that,
that
like it would in a
too.
movie, like
Yep.
from that time when you know, because
Yep.
some of those grindhouse movies are pretty rough. I mean, if you watch them, I mean, there's one called Dolomite where, you know, I think I said in my review that the boom mic appears so often it should have been listed in the credits because you get those type of things that happen in those movies, you know,
That is
and
so
it's just so
funny.
Mm,
cool that you're seeing that, and he captured that, and yet it still feels cohesive, and he's still keeping the story going.
yes. Totally agree.
Very good. In the next scene, the girls pull up to a restaurant and park. I think it was Guero's, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think that's
And
right.
they get margaritas. And Arlene stands outside finishing her cigarette and notices that black car that we saw earlier stopping in the middle of the road while the driver stares in her direction for a few seconds before peeling out. And she can't see him like in detail. She just sees his figure kind of shadowed in his car, but it's just it gives you that really kind of eerie vibe of why is this car parked, like literally stopped in the middle of the road, not even at a stop sign, and you could at least make out the figure so she can tell that this guy's staring at her.
But she also says in a little bit, she admits that it's not him that scares her, it's that car. And I think she just got
Right.
evil vibes from it. She just kind of could tell before she
Yeah.
even saw the guy that was driving it
Right.
that I think this is bad news.
Yes, totally. Well, and it does have a skull painted on it, so that probably doesn't help.
Right.
And then Arlene enters the restaurant and meets a new character, a friend to her other friends, who says, while being introduced to her, "So you must be the infamous Butterfly." Their mutual friends try to shush Marcy, our new character, but it's too late. Arlene demands that they tell her what's going on. Julia comes clean, saying that she said the following on the air earlier that day: "I have a sexy friend named Butterfly who is in from out of town for the weekend, and that we would be going out on the town in Austin tonight. And if they spotted you, they could do something for you, and you would have to do something for them in return." Julia has her friend Marcy act out this scenario, as explained on the radio earlier that day. And she instructs Arlene to hand Marcy her drink, which she obliges. And Julia provides the scene. "So you will be out at a club or a bar when a kind of cute or kind of hot or kind of sexy or better be fucking hysterically funny but not funny looking guy who you could fuck." And Marcy approaches Arlene in a masculine manner and asks, "Is Butterfly your real name?" And so Julia explains, when they buy you a drink and they raise the glass to toast, they have to look you dead in the eye and repeat this poem: "The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, and I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Did you hear me, Butterfly? Miles to go before you sleep." And if they buy you a drink and say your name and recite that poem, then you have to give them a lap dance. Arlene insists that that'll never happen, but Julia is a step ahead of her, anticipating her friend's dissatisfaction. And Julia explains to Arlene how she could use the situation to her advantage. So basically, she tells her if the guy is cute and you're drunk enough, then you could go ahead and do it because I've made it so that you have to, so that you don't look like a chicken shit. But if they're not cute and you don't want to give them a lap dance, you can just lie and say that you already gave it to someone else earlier that night. So it's a pretty solid plan, pretty solid, I must say. And it's cute. It's just like a really fun, cute scene, and how they have Marcy act it out is just really fun.
Right. It's fun, yeah.
Yeah, and like we said, Quentin's thing is very stylized, but for some reason, at least for me, it works. Like there's a few writer-directors that do that sort of thing, like an example I can think of right off the top of my head is like the show Gilmore Girls and how fast-paced that is in their dialogue. Like they always have something to say in response to each other.
Right,
My husband hates it. He hates it. And I'm like, you know what? I can see that. And there's a lot of people that don't like that. And I don't know why with Quentin Tarantino, maybe because it's like so Hollywood, and Hollywood people are kind of like that. They're like weird. I don't want to say they're not people, but they're kind of like aliens. You know what I mean? And I grew up in Southern California, in Palm Springs, which is pretty close to LA. So I've like run into those kinds of people, for the first half of my life. I met a bunch of famous people, and yeah, they're like weird non-people. So maybe that's why it works, but I love it.
Nice.
At the bar, Julia does a sultry slow dance to a song that she put on the jukebox. And apparently she likes this bar because they have like the best jukebox in town.
That was a pretty solid jukebox, I have to say.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And they called their friend Lena Frank earlier to supply the weed. That was Shanna's idea, the best idea she had all day. And so now that they're at the bar, they're calling her to figure out where she is so they can score. And then Julia walks away to text Chris Simonson that they talked about earlier, imploring him to hurry as she's excited to see him. And this is when she's very painfully, slowly texting him. But like you said, that romantic music comes in just while she's texting, and she bites her lip, and she looks really pleased when he responds back very quickly that he's excited too. And then she sends him a little XOXO. Warren, the bar owner, who is played by Quentin Tarantino, sends a round of shots to the table, and the house rules are that you have to take them when Warren sends them. So we have our 3 girls, and they also have a couple of guy friends with them, including Eli Roth. I mean, Eli Roth is playing the character, playing himself.
I hate his face. Let me just say that.
He does have a very punchable face.
Right?
I mean, especially in this movie when he's talking about them at the bar. I'm like, ew.
I just don't like him. Like I know him. Like I hang out with him, right? I don't know. I just was like, oh, not this guy. Okay. Yeah.
So they take their shots, and sorry, I lost my spot. Oh, yes. So they take their shots, and then Arlene goes outside to smoke. And after being out there for a while, Warren has his barmaid turn on the parking lot lights. I put barmaid. I was like, what? I don't know what to call her.
that works.
That works. Yeah. That's pretty much what she is. Yeah.
Who's a person who constructs drinks at a bar? Bartender. She's a bartender, yeah. But I called her a barmaid. I'm sticking with the theme of being stuck in the 70s. I don't know. So he has his fellow bartender turn on the parking lot lights to reveal to Arlene that same black car that she noticed earlier at the restaurant is parked there in the darkness. And, she's just been sitting there smoking, not knowing that it was there. So it's like a creepy reveal.
One of the interesting things about that, though, is by the time he cuts back out there, the light's on and you see the car. You almost get the feeling like in the movie, like that might have been cut a little bit early or something, that you saw the light go on and you saw her see it all of a sudden get illuminated. You got that feeling, but you don't see that. By the time they cut to her, the light's already on and she's looking at it. But again, that's sort of a 70s thing. Like maybe there was something happened to the film and they had to cut it up a little bit and they had to tighten that scene a little bit or whatever. Because I always remembered it as, for some reason, I remembered it as the light goes on and then she sees the car. But that's not what happens. She sees it, like the light's already on and she sees the car. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You know, like you would think,
maybe...
like you would think she's in the darkness. The light goes on. She looks over and sees the car. But
Okay.
you see, they made a point of looking of the bartender turning the light on.
Yeah.
But by the time they cut to her, she's already looking at it. Like she's already looking at the car.
Oh, that's funny because I remember it as her like looking over at it too, but that might just be my brain like filling in that gap naturally.
And I think it might have been my brain filling it in too, because I noticed it this time. I was like, oh, wait a second. When they cut outside to her, it's already on and she's already sort of looking at it. Like she, you know, it's like we missed that moment. We missed that moment of darkness to the reveal. But that would be something that might happen in a movie like this, in a grindhouse movie. If it got damaged, then they had to cut it up a little bit and tighten it a little bit.
Yeah, that is really funny. Yeah, maybe that's why they have that whole like unnecessary scene of him being like, "Hey, turn on the light. There's one light in the parking lot that I forgot to turn on."
That's exactly it. He was setting that up. He was setting that up for that reveal, but we don't actually get the reveal. Like the reveal of we see her seeing it and being afraid of it, but we don't get the reveal. And it's like they were setting that up perfectly.
Yeah, which was probably intentional, of course, because it's Quentin Tarantino, so that makes it like even cooler. That is so awesome. All right, so the girls, let's see. Oh, yes. Okay, so the girls have met up with some boys, as I had mentioned earlier, and these two guys go to order Shanna and Julia a couple of more drinks while scheming on how to get the girls drunk enough to convince them to let the guys tag along on their trip to Shanna's dad's lake house for the weekend. It's a very skeezy and uncomfortable conversation, and it ends in them making fun of a man eating at the bar in response to noticing a large scar down his face. So it's almost like making fun of a disabled person, you know what I mean? And they just like keep coming up with more and more jokes. I'm like, oh my God.
What's really funny is I think Eli Roth, because I saw a clip where when they cut that scene where Kurt Russell throws nachos at him for what he was saying, and Eli Roth like apologized and no, I'm a big fan. I'm sorry, I hate saying this stuff, but I'm a fan of you know.
I saw that.
Funny. Yeah, I actually didn't watch. I ended up not having enough time to watch that video, so sad. You guys will have to fill in the trivia that you learned from that. And then we focus on the scar-faced man as he creepily looks back over his shoulder at Julia's table and watches everybody. And then Arlene asks Julia about a pretty blonde girl that's sitting alone at the bar. Julia says that she's a fake blonde hippie bitch. And Arlene doesn't understand the animosity, but then we focus on this blonde who asks Warren if someone can give her a ride home. And from her left, the man with the scar, who's being played by Kurt Russell, slides his keys over to her and says that he can take her home later if she still needs a ride when he's ready to go. They have a little fun back and forth. And I didn't put in all their dialogue, but it's very more Quentin Tarantino dialogue and character building. And we're getting to know stuntman Mike. And then the blonde is Pam. So they're just kind of introducing themselves. She's kind of trying to feel him out, like, okay, should I take a ride from this guy or is he a creep? He's putting on very like, I'm just a cool dude.
He's being sort of smooth with her, and it's working, but you get little hints of just something when she calls him cowboy and he goes, I'm not a cowboy, Pam. And then he just goes right back into character. I'm a stuntman, like just a little bit of the darkness in him. You get that every now and again. It just sort of creeps up just a little bit, but then he pulls it back down and carries on this conversation with her. And it's handled well. I mean, I love that. And I thought Kurt Russell did a great job with it because he's not breaking like this flow of this conversation he's having with her. but she said just something that just annoyed him enough that you just get a little bit of it coming to the surface of what's sort of lurking underneath this guy.
Right.
Well, can I just say this was, my first watch, and I knew absolutely nothing about this movie, and I did not pick up on that. I didn't know where this was going. I didn't know what was going to happen in this movie. I didn't know anything about it. So I didn't know at this point who
you didn't know anything about him. Yeah.
Didn't know anything about him. And I just thought maybe those little bit of, I thought maybe he was actually, I know, silly, but I thought actually he might be some sort of a sympathetic character event, like I wasn't sure. And I thought that those couple times where it was more just him like reacting to these like irritating young girls in this bar when he's just trying to have his nachos. So I didn't pick up that it was like the dark side of him coming out. I thought, oh, he's trying really hard to be nice to her so that he can give her a ride home because maybe he doesn't want her going home with these two douche canoes over here, like maybe he'd be a safe person and I really thought that's what was going on. So, not to jump ahead, but obviously I'm going to be
that's I can see that.
But
that's what's on the screen, that's what's on screen.
At this point,
that's a perfect thing to point out because I'm writing this as someone who's seen this movie like 100 times. So I'm like, he creepily looked over his shoulder, and you're like, I didn't feel like it was. Oh yeah, that makes sense because he probably didn't want you to know yet that this guy was evil. So yeah, that's awesome.
I really thought just from the I had never watched the trailer. I had just seen some stills. I thought maybe the girls were bad and something was going to happen to Kurt Russell at this point. So, I mean, that's kind of where, because these girls definitely, I loved them. I was like totally into them, but they're the ones that seemed to me to have the edge or like they had some kind of like maybe they were up to some mischief. We're going to get into some mischief, maybe rob this guy and take his car and maybe Rose McGowan was in it. I just didn't know what to think, but I really totally missed what Kurt was going to, become. So, yeah.
But then that makes sense. If it's your first time, that makes perfect sense. Because that's what's on the screen. He's in, he's not unlikable at this point.
He's rather likable, actually, I thought. He is. And yeah.
Oh my God. And I've met like a ton of guys like this at the bar. You know what I mean? That are just like cool older guys and they're very respectful and they don't try to like do anything weird and they're just chilling and they're like, yeah, you young people. And they like to just like talk, and
I think, so, and I don't know if you're going to, you might be getting to it, but the scene where he's explaining what he's done as a stuntman and then stops and realizes, you girls don't know any of these people or shows I'm talking about, do you?
Yeah.
I know.
That cracked me up because he's like just rattling these things off and they're just looking at it like, I
actually felt very sympathetic for him in that scene too, because you see for a second just this total like really sad look on his face, like it's a dying art, Like,
yes. Plus there is one little throwaway line a little bit earlier where Rose says like, hey Warren, can you vouch for anyone in here to give me a ride? And he says and she says, who is this guy? And he's like, that's stuntman Mike. Like it just rolled out, like he's come in there 100 times and so this is a question I was going to have for you guys later, and I'll save it. You don't have to answer me now, but do you think Warren was in on it?
I don't think so.
Okay, never mind.
I think stuntman Mike probably has been like infiltrating, the area for like a month or something, and bar owners just meet like a ton of people. Someone becomes a regular very quickly. You know what I mean? So he wouldn't have had to like been going in there for very long.
Okay, I just wondered. Yeah, okay.
That's my own personal feeling. I don't know.
I don't know.
Warren didn't seem smart enough to be in on the.
True that.
He's been hanging out there for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting.
All right.
Yeah. It's hanging up a little bit for me sometimes. Like the video is pausing a little bit.
Okay. How does it look for you, Tammy?
He just looks frozen to me right now.
And it's funny because you both were frozen to me. I could hear what you were saying, but
do you want to restart the call?
We can definitely do that because your audio is totally fine for sure. And we could just like hang this up and start a new call and I'll just piece them together.
Want to do that?
I mean, if you want to give that a try, yeah, because sometimes, and when it gets a little bit later at night, that happens. And I'm be honest, video is a little bit new for me, so I don't know. Maybe it's something that happens with video, or at least in my area. I'm not sure, but we can do that if you want.
We'll call you right back.
Okay. Yeah, we'll call you right back. Bye.
Was I very good now? It's like not hanging up or anything now, so looking good.
Okay.
First, I thought it was my sons. They're always doing stuff like games and stuff, and they seem to do it late into the night, and
of course,
very annoying. Yeah.
Mucking up the connection. All right. Okay. So I'm recording.
Yep.
We're all good to go. I'm going to take a drink real quick. Okay. So Lena Frank, our local weed dealer, finally shows up and she startles the blonde at the bar before heading over to Julia's table. I'm still referring to her as the blonde. So I'm going to call her Pam now. Yeah. When Pam asks Stuntman Mike what he's so distracted by, he asks if the girl sitting at the table is the same one from all the billboards. Pam responds bitterly. So we can tell that her and Julia clearly do not like each other because they both talk some mad shit. Yes. And she tells Stuntman Mike that if he wants to get with Julia, all he has to do is get famous because apparently that's Julia's thing. So,
sick burn. Yeah.
Outside on the front little porch area, Julia is smoking some weed with Lena and a couple of their friends while Stuntman Mike introduces himself. Julia offers for him to smoke some weed with them, which he respectfully declines. When he comes back into the bar, a group of bar goers led by Pam and Warren inquire about his filmography. Stuntman Mike goes through all the different projects he's worked on when he realizes that none of the young faces looking at him know what he's talking about. Yeah, Pam genuinely apologizes for her ignorance while Stuntman Mike dons a sad and faraway look for a moment. Such a bummer. But she's like, I'm sorry. Like she doesn't want to admit it, like she's trying to like just act very interested in his filmography, which is very cute,
I think at this point she's seeing him like I'm seeing him.
Yes.
As like a sympathetic character, just an old guy, just, yeah.
Yep.
Back out on the porch, the girls are looking pretty faded, and Julia has just texted Chris that he's an asshole when she asks Arlene if she's ready to go to the lake house and if she still wants to keep it a girls' night only or if she wants to bring Nate along. Arlene responds that she wants it to just be the girls. And soon after, the girls are handed beers by Stuntman Mike. When he sits down, stares Butterfly in the eyes and recites the poem after saying her name.
Uh-oh.
She looks him dead in the eyes back, and Julia tells him that he's out of luck while calling him Stuntman Bert, which he did not like. Julia goes on to say that she already broke off that dance earlier. Stuntman Mike asks Butterfly if that's true. She looks nervous, and he asks if it's the face that's frightening her. And then she responds that it's his car and asks if he's been following them when she reveals that she saw him outside of the restaurant earlier. He says that he wasn't following her and that he loves how small Austin is, proclaiming that he was just lucky. She tells him that she's going to have to take a rain check on that dance. When he threatens to add her name to his book of people he's met that he carries around on him and says he's going to file her under chicken shit, she very quickly caves and tells him to go inside and get ready for his lap dance.
I loved this scene so much when he whips out the book.
Yes, I know. And the way he's talking,
he's doing the John
so
Wayne.
weird.
He's doing the John Wayne impression. Yeah.
Yes.
A really good one too.
He's doing very good. Yeah, very good impression.
So good. And apparently chicken shit is the term that nobody wants to be called in Austin, Texas. Because it's what Julia threatened earlier and it's what he's threatening now, and it worked like this. And I haven't mentioned yet, but Arlene has like a very thick, what is it, like a Brooklyn accent.
Yes.
Which I love. And I don't think we're ever told where she's coming from, for the weekend. So she lives somewhere else.
I think, well, it's the idea is it is from Brooklyn. Like she's flown in from New York for the weekend.
Okay.
And Tarantino said he was writing this role for her. He didn't know if he was going to cast her, but he was making it like Brooklyn. He liked that idea of the Brooklyn accent and making it for that character for her. He goes, if I cast someone else, I would have just changed it to a different place. But I was making her like from Brooklyn is what he was saying. Okay. Without actually putting that in the movie, because I don't think they ever mention it. Like, right. You're right. They never actually mentioned where she was from.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was wondering because it seemed like maybe she grew up there in Austin, Texas, and then moved away. I just don't understand like what the thread is, how she's friends with these girls.
No,
but it doesn't
really
actually
don't
matter.
Go into that. Yeah. They don't go into that.
This is when a title card pops up that reads "Real Missing" before we cut away to everybody in the parking lot. This is where I put, "There's supposed to be my favorite lap dance scene of all time right here."
I saw the lap dance.
Well, I did too, but in the Grindhouse movie, that was the missing scene. That was the joke. Oh. He cut it out of the Grindhouse version, but when he released Death Proof as its own movie, he put it back in.
It's like one of the highlights of the movie.
Yeah, so I looked it up on YouTube. I was like, I have to watch it.
Yeah.
And I put that because of this movie, Down in Mexico is the sexiest song to me of all time.
I like that song too. Yeah, that's a great song.
I love it.
That's because of that scene. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. I listen to the soundtrack all the time, but I especially listen to that song.
And
actually,
I like the Stagger Lee version. Mm-hmm. Like Stagger Lee's an old sort of 50s standard. But I love the version in this one, the sort of blues version of that song.
Yeah. It's very sexy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. And I put that I love Arlene's little like poochy belly and her bubble butt. She's so cute.
You can't take your eyes off of it. I mean, she's extremely sexy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Extremely sexy.
And she's like lip singing to the song with like the sexiest look on her face and her big hair and her big lips. She's crawling on the floor, getting all up in his face, putting her feet between his crotch. I just love it. It's so hot. But yeah, that scene, I think about that scene all the time. What about you, Dave? What do you have to say about that scene?
It's a great scene. And like when I first saw this in, I first saw it as Grindhouse. So I saw it as scene missing. And I was under the impression that maybe he didn't actually shoot it, that was the joke, that was the joke in the movie, that they had this buildup that they kept having for this lap dance was finally going to happen, and boom, we're not going to get it. But then when I bought, it took them a long time to get Grindhouse released on Blu-ray, but they did release the two movies standalone. So I picked them up, and Death Proof put that scene back in. Like I didn't know going into it that they put that scene back in, which I thought was, and I saw and I was like, wow, it's an amazing scene. And she plays it so well. She really does play it so well.
Yeah. No one's calling her a chicken shit after that dance. I'll tell you that. All right. Stuntman Mike takes Pam with him to his death-proof car. And when he asks Pam how she thinks cars are, able to smash into each other in the movies, she responds, with CGI? Stuntman Mike laments that that's probably true more often than not nowadays. But in the good old days, real cars driven by dumb men really crashed into each other. And this is while he's like kind of explaining to her how they reinforce it in a way that makes it death-proof.
And I liked how he said that. He goes, in the Vanishing Point days, the Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry days, the White Line Fever days, when all three of those movies are like great. I love all three of them. So he's rattling them off, and she again has no clue what the hell he's talking about.
Yes, yes.
She's
Yeah.
never seen any of those movies.
Yes.
Yes, I personally have not seen those movies either, not even Vanishing Point,
Vanishing
but I will.
Point's like one of my favorite movies. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really good.
It's like ever since this came out, I've been wanting to see those movies because I'm like, oh, I'm not a real cinephile apparently.
Well, no. I
So-
mean, it's like, and the only reason Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry means something to me is I visited California, my aunt and uncle back in the year that was released, and I remember we were driving down the road, and we passed a billboard for it, advertising Dirty
Nice.
Mary, Crazy Larry. And I remember my uncle made a comment about how hot Susan George was. So, that movie kind of stuck with me. Then I went home and I saw a TV commercial for it when we got home. And I'm a kid. I may be like 4 or 5 years old. And I'm thinking, Bart, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry must be the greatest movie ever made because it's everywhere.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That is
You know
so
what?
cool.
Susan George is hot.
Yes.
Looking her up. She is
Oh, yeah,
hot little blonde. Yes, she is.
absolutely.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, that's funny. It's one of those things I never really thought about, but growing up near LA, you always see like billboards for movies and stuff everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's just like not
Yep.
actually that common outside of that that area. But I just didn't
Yeah.
know it because I just grew up around it.
Nice. And I was in Hollywood for exactly one morning because we took the Universal Studios tour back in 1986. We were there, and what were the billboards and posters all over the city? Howard the Duck.
Nice.
It was
I
right
have
before
seen
Howard the
that.
Duck came out. Yeah.
Shows where my priorities are. All right. Well, back at the death proof vehicle, Pam seems a little reluctant to get into her passenger side box, as she refers to it. And I'm trying to think of a way to describe how this is set up. It's like not even a real seat. It's this like little funny tiny seat for the cameraman to sit in because he has his car set up.
Looks almost
to
like
do
a
stunts.
bicycle
Mhm.
seat on an exercise bike that's 20 years old.
Yes.
That's like
Right.
really
Yes.
wide, and then it
Yes.
doesn't even have the foam on it. It's just the metal part.
Yes. Yes. Oh, perfect. I don't have to figure out how to describe it. You did it for me. Thank you. And then there's this like see-through kind of like plastic barrier
Yep.
between them.
Yep.
With the holes for the camera and the sound and stuff. But yeah, it
It's
does
like
not look.
it's like plexiglass, right? Like
Yeah.
some sort of
Yes.
like maybe some safety to it, but probably not a whole heck of a lot. Like enough that he's going to try to convince her to get in, obviously, here in a minute. So you could sort of buy it, and I was still buying it at this point. So
well, and as he points out to her, on the bright side, he can't get fresh and feel up her knee.
Yeah, and she's like,
With
that
that
is a
barrier.
bright side.
Yeah. I think he's really good at this too, of like, if she feels uncomfortable about something, he's like, okay, well then I won't give you a ride. Like he's not pushy about it. He's just very matter of fact, like, well, I'm driving a car and if you need a ride, you can get in it. And if you don't, I don't really care. Which is like the perfect play,
Well, I think she was just kind of like a bonus for him, right? Because he's after the 3 pictures on his visor, right?
Yes.
And she's not on there, so it's probably just like a bonus, like
Right.
Total bonus. Yeah. So she does end up getting in, and before they drive off, Stuntman Mike breaks the fourth wall and looks directly at the audience and gives us a little smirk.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that. I don't remember that.
Yeah, he watches to see which way they're going, which way Jungle Julie and all are going, and they hang a left, and then he just turns, smiles at the camera, and gets in the car.
Well, all right. I'll catch that next time.
Oh, that's so funny. Yes. And then when they get out to the main road, Stuntman Mike asks Pam which way she's going, left or right. When she says that she's going right, Stuntman Mike drops the act, revealing that they're both going left.
Yeah,
Right.
Here we go. Here we go.
Yep.
So what were you like totally sold on his character up until this point?
100%. I don't know what that says about me, but yes. You guys could have seen my face right here. I was like, what? Wait, what? Like, What?
And just the way he does it, he goes, "Oh, that's too bad."
Yeah.
You know, you could have been going just as easily been going left, and it would have been a while before you started getting scared. But I'm afraid you're going to have to get scared right away. And boom,
and even
it's, you know.
I think my face was probably mirroring hers, because it took her a second to like, wait, what just happened?
Right,
You know?
right. Is he kidding here? Is this a joke or yeah.
Right, because that would totally be within his character too, just from how we've seen him kind of like banter with her all night.
Yep.
Nope. This is a rude wake-up call for Pam, sadly. He drives off like a madman all of a sudden, swerving all over the place and just missing oncoming traffic. And Pam momentarily gets knocked unconscious from slamming around so much. And we just see like her flailing and just slamming against both sides and blood splattered behind her. And she comes to and she's weakly asking him to let her go. You know, she's like, I get it. This is a really funny joke. Please, can I just get out now? And she's crying and like half not even awake, you know, and just smearing blood on the plexiglass. It's really sad. And then he says that his car really is death proof. But to benefit from it, you really need to be sitting in his seat before he slams on the brakes and Pam bashes her face against the dash so violently and she falls back to her death soon after. And she does kind of like try to struggle to get up for a second and then just totally fails.
Yeah, and he's watching, like he's just looking down and watching her. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, the sick part of me was like, oh, that must have been such a thrill for him. I don't know if he's ever killed anyone like in the car.
Right.
It must have been a cool little check mark, you know, for his bucket list. I don't know. All right. So poor Pam has met her end in a very sad way. All right. And then after she dies, stuntman Mike folds down his visor to reveal 3 pictures of Julia, Arlene, and Shanna, which he throws out his car window before racing to catch up with them, his other girlfriends, as he tells dead Pam.
All right, so I have a question for you two, and this might be the place to ask it, and you can tell me, no, wait, we'll answer you later if you don't want to say now. But what is his motivation? Is it feet? Like, what is his motivation? Why does he have these pictures of these 3 girls? That we never learn his motivation.
I don't know that actually that makes it a little more creepy. I think that makes it a little creepier that this is just a guy who stalks young women to, you know, and I think and I guess we'll get to it, but I think the sheriff sums it up perfectly. I think he nails it. I think he nails exactly why he does it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And so do you think he just like moves around the country and
possibly? Yeah, I think so. It's clear he's done this before.
Yeah.
You know, you get that feeling he's definitely done this before. And you know, he's just got this whole modus operandi, and this is how he's going to do it, and he uses his car as a weapon.
And these are just like crimes of opportunity then.
Crimes of opportunity, and I think there is something about, now you know from his character, there's this sort of inferiority in him because time's passed him by. Clearly he's not a stuntman anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a working stuntman anymore. So, you know, he's angry at the world, maybe. And this is, I don't know why he's picking young women. They don't necessarily say that. Mm-hmm. But I think it could be like the sheriff said, it could be a sex thing for him, you know, and it's just this is his way of, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking, you know, that it's not 100% clear, but that makes it like a kind of creepy too. You know, that if you don't know exactly why he's doing it, but just that he is doing it, he's done it before, and clearly he intends to do it again.
Do you think maybe the Jungle Julia billboards, there were so many of them, and do you think maybe that's like what caught his eye at first because she is
It could
successful right
be.
now?
If
Yeah.
and if
Mm.
he's seen her around town and knew that there would be opportunity, that's possible.
Yeah.
But he's also been watching him for a while because he had those pictures.
Right. Right. Okay. I just wondered if I had missed something. I kind of thought that was the case, but
Yeah.
I wasn't
No,
100%
they
sure.
did not really reveal like that, other than the sheriff. That's the only sort of reveal that there is, and that's just sort of his reading of it. But I think he's right on.
Yeah, I think totally like that that's his way of now getting his thrills,
Yeah.
because he had
Yeah.
this career where he had his adrenaline up all the time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
like,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
what can he do
Right.
to satisfy that? And I think that what you said though about how Jungle Julia is kind of like a local celebrity of sorts
Hmm.
probably has something to do with it. Like, oh, I got this,
Well, that
this
makes
big
sense.
shot.
That
Yeah.
makes sense
Clearly, he
too.
listens to her show too, because
Yeah,
he
he
knew the
knew.
poem,
Right.
that he had to give. So
Well, and two, that the closest thing we get to exposition probably in this whole movie is the sheriff,
yes,
and by giving that little monologue there, it explains how he gets to keep doing this the way that
yes,
he does.
yes.
So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, and I do think that like him moving up to stunt women was probably intentional. Like he's still trying to like one up the experience.
Could have
He's
been.
still
Yeah,
trying to like get
yeah.
a
absolutely.
bigger thrill in what he is doing.
Right. Right.
So, yeah. Good question, Tammy.
Well, probably
Yeah.
too. I mean, he's old school. There wasn't women doing this back then, so he probably thinks like these girls are hacks. And I think he
Right.
thought the car chase certainly wasn't going to end the way that he
I
did
don't. Well,
and was going to be off.
He didn't know what opportunity he was going to have with. I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but he didn't know
Yeah.
the opportunity he was going to have, because how could he have guessed they were going to do with that car what they were doing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
totally true. Yeah. All right.
You
Well, I'm
know.
getting way ahead, so go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, that's okay. In the next scene, Julia calls someone at her radio station and requests that they play. What was that song? It's like
Well,
Mitch,
song
Titch,
I think is
and
called "Hold Tight," but I can't remember. Dave D. And I don't remember. I know she was saying Pete Townsend almost
oh,
left the Who to join it.
it is Hold Tight. Dave
Yeah.
D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
Pete Townsend almost left the Who, and then they would have put Pete at the end of it. And she goes, "And if you ask me, he should have." And that's the if there's
Exactly.
anything in the movie that bothers me, it's that line, because the Who is my favorite group. I
That
know
bothered me
Tarantino is
too.
not a fan of them. He said before he's not a fan of the Who, but I love the Who. They're
Really?
my favorite group.
Oh, I love the Who too.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I love The
Yeah.
Who. Yeah, what the hell?
Yay, we all love the Who. Okay.
Yeah, that was also the one line that bothered me too, because she was so annoyingly like superior in that
Dismissive of them.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
flippant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Right.
So that's funny. And they're, riding in their car at this point, of course. And then the
Right.
song comes on and all the girls drunkenly dance in their seats, and Shannon plays a mean set of air drums, which I just thought was adorable. I totally do
Mm-hmm.
that. And Julia taps her foot outside of the passenger window. Everyone's laughing and clearly enjoying their night. And stuntman Mike passes them in his car, and they don't notice because he has his lights off. And he gets out in front of them, and he has his lights off. He just parks and then starts revving the engine until he finally starts to drive towards them as fast as he can. And then he turns his lights on the moment before impact, and we get a replay 4 times, focusing on a different character and their death each time.
Yeah.
That was so wild. That was
Mm.
so crazy. It was
So
awesome.
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah.
love this scene. I might love
Yes.
this more than the lap dance, actually. It's so good. Yeah, so first we get to see what happens to Shanna, and her body, I think, like flies through the front windshield, and I think it actually like hits stuntman Mike's car before kind of like flying up into the air.
I think so. Yeah. I don't
And
see how
then
she couldn't have. Yeah.
yeah, and then it lands very forcefully onto the street below. And Lena, who's actually buckled in her seat. She's the driver. She gets like wicked whiplash, so it doesn't look that bad, but I'm sure, I mean, they all
she was
died.
like
So
the steering wheel crushed her. I mean, she was like
okay,
crushed
it
because the whole
did.
front of the like yeah, yeah. You didn't see
Yeah.
it like you didn't see as clearly as you did all of the other ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for hers, like all you get to see is her like whiplashing, you know, until it goes on to the next character. But yeah, you're right, because he's flying like head-on collision right into her, so of course she's gonna get crushed. And then lost my freaking spot again. Oh yes, and then Julia's leg just gets cut clean off just by the sheer force of the collision from her hanging her foot out the window. That leg looks so good.
Yeah, it did. It did.
You know, like the only thing that kind of looks a little funny is probably
Yeah.
Shanna's body, you know, when it's like flying in the air. But everything else in the scene is like legit. And then for our last little death scene, we see
oh my God,
the front tire of Stuntman Mike's car run over Arlene's face in the back seat, and as we watch in slow motion horror.
Yep.
And them showing that split second of her seeing the lights come on and closing her eyes like in anticipation is like so heartbreaking.
Yes.
Right.
And so good.
I'm telling you, I can't, when I'm driving down like a back road now, I think of this scene sometimes, you know, when I'm just driving down like a dark, and I live out in farm country, so I'm driving down these dark roads, you know, I'm like, I think of that, and I think of that scene from this movie. It just sort of pops into my head, and it shakes you. It really does, because this is something that could happen. I mean, this is, you know, it's really strong stuff. It really is. But I don't know if you noticed, but when he's up in the air and the car is going, they throw a Wilhelm scream in there.
Oh, I didn't
like
notice.
Yeah, but like when he's up and they do that, you know, that Wilhelm scream when his car's up there, we're supposed to believe it's him, you know.
I didn't. I've never noticed that.
I just noticed it for the first time. I've seen this movie a bunch of times too, but that was the first time I noticed it was this most recent viewing. Yeah.
That is so funny, and that's such a recognizable, you know, sound clip. But yeah, I've never know. I'll pay attention. Yes. I think I'm just always so hyper focused on the girls that I just like have never paid attention to that.
Yeah. You know what it is you see what happens. Yeah. It's so rare that you see what happens inside of a car during an accident. You know what I mean? This is a whole new perspective that I just don't think we normally get to see. And it was just like horrifying, like a train wreck. You can't not look, but it's like, oh my God, my eyes, you know?
It is. It's very like shocking.
Yes. And it looked so good and so realistic. But Arlene's face, like, I don't think I'll ever get over that, ever. Like, no, I lost a part of myself.
I know, especially knowing that she gave him a lap dance.
Yes.
It makes you like more mad.
Yep.
What a dick.
It's almost like when she shuts her eyes, it's almost like she knows. Like, and she knows who it is almost, you know, like, I don't know. You could almost, you can't, I mean, it's a split second, so you can't read too much into it, I guess. But I always sort of thought that she's like, here we go. Like, this is what she was afraid of the whole time.
Right.
Well, yeah. She's the only character that we ever see kind of even bat an eye, like that maybe something's off about this guy. So I could totally see that in that split second, like, man, I knew it. Here's that car. I knew it.
Oh my God. I've never even thought about that at all. Like that she even had enough time to register that. But you're right. There could have been some, you know, like crazy lizard brain thing going on for like a split second.
I mean, I think there's a reason why the camera was on her and she shut her eyes at that exact moment. Like her reaction was the one he focused on.
Yeah.
So how sympathetic are you feeling for him about now, Tammy?
Oh, that's way over. But I mean, during the Pam scene, I think I was still in shock. Now I'm pissed. You know what I mean? Like, especially with Art, like, I just love these girls, and I really loved Arlene, and that lap dance that she gave him was so intimate and like special, and this is how he's going to pay them all back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate
Right.
to even equate the two,
Yeah.
but it just felt even more violating because of that lap dance.
Exactly.
And I would hate to have missed that scene because I think it really adds to my feelings going forward. It just made it feel different. It's kind of hard for me to even put in words, but it just makes this scene different because of that. I feel it just feels so personal. So yeah,
Totally. Because,
Right.
he's like, haha, got one over on her and I killed her. Like,
yep.
bonus.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling that it gives you in your tummy.
No. And as much as I love Kurt Russell, I mean, he is one of my hugest crushes of all time too. But like, I can't think of too many, roles where he gets to play this. Like, I mean, okay, there's like Snake Plissken, but is that really a bad guy? No, not really.
No.
This is like straight up evil. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And you
Yes.
just don't see
Yes.
that from him. You think back to like the computer wore tennis shoes or whatever, and
Right.
like this is like, what are you doing with my Kurt there? But he played it so masterfully. This guy has so much range. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But this is a whole new Kurt to me. So I was just like, what? I'm having all the feels right now. But yeah,
Right.
I'm totally hating him at
Mhm.
this point. But yeah, yeah.
Right. And he does get to use his kind of like charisma, which he's like known for,
Yeah.
to create this villain, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Tammy doesn't know this, but we are in the same hospital from Planet Terror. So,
Right.
Yes, I
What do
have
you-
not seen Planet Terror, everyone.
That,
so.
like the conversation between the doctor and you get, they're all family, obviously, and the sheriff and his son, and who's that, Marley Shelton, who plays the doctor, and is telling him, and she gets pissed and walks off, and curses, and he's being real nice to her. That's they play a little more into that when they get to Planet Terror, because the events of Planet Terror take place after, even though Death Proof was the second movie, it's in the same universe, and they take place after the events of Death Proof. Because there's a scene in Planet Terror where on the radio they say that was a tribute to our own Jungle Julia, rest in peace, or something like that.
Oh.
They say on the radio in Planet Terror. And if you see Planet Terror, you absolutely know why it's happening after what happened in Death Proof.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I don't know if you'll like that one as much. How do you feel about Robert Rodriguez in general? Or do you even have like any feelings towards him specifically?
But having seen this now, I feel like I have to see Planet Terror.
And I like that the babysitters show up at the bar or at the restaurant where they were. The two babysitters from Planet Terror show up at that restaurant where the one girl reenacts what Julia had said on the radio. You see the two babysitters there, which is pretty cool.
Oh,
from Planet Terror, the twin babysitters.
Yeah, you should definitely watch it.
I will.
Yeah.
I don't know if that one's like free anywhere, but I would recommend even just running the whole Grindhouse thing and watching it because it has all the fake trailers and stuff.
The fake trailers are a lot of fun too. They really are.
Fun.
Especially the Thanksgiving one, because now that that's been made into a movie, people have been clamoring because of the fake trailer in Grindhouse that when is Eli Roth going to make Thanksgiving? When is Eli Roth going to make Thanksgiving? And then he finally did.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the fake trailers are so much fun. I loved it. I felt very nostalgic watching it all together for the first time since the movie theater. I'll say that. But it's like a whole experience, and you being a huge fan of the 70s, I think that you will appreciate it at least for that. And it's got like the grainy film thing going on too, like this movie does.
Yes,
so.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think I would like it. Even just visually,
yes. That's like the reason to watch it.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Yep. All right. So in the same hospital from Planet Terror, we see stuntman Mike being questioned by a few investigators while the sheriff and his son, who I think is also his son in real life.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, perfect. They ask the same nurse from Planet Terror about his. Is she a doctor or a nurse?
I think it seems like she's a doctor.
Yeah,
It
I
seems
think
like
you're
she's
right.
a doctor.
I think I was just
and
like,
obviously, like I said, they're all family. That's the daughter, and that's the sheriff's daughter, and this, so they're all family there. But there's definitely a history between them, and they do play that out a little bit more in Planet Terror as well.
Right. Okay, so the same doctor from Planet Terror is there, and the sheriff's asking her about his injuries. And he lost the tip of a finger and he broke a collarbone, but he's mostly unscathed. And the sheriff tells his son his theory that Stuntman Mike premeditatedly murdered the girls because it's the only way he can get a thrill anymore. And he goes into more detail on that, but I didn't write it all out. And we already talked about it, luckily, so that was helpful.
Yes.
So this kind of concludes the first half of this movie, because now, 14 months later, we meet a new group of girlfriends who are Abernathy, Kim, Lee, and Zoe. Zoe Bell playing herself. And they're driving through Lebanon, Tennessee in a yellow 1972 Ford Mustang. The girls have just picked up Zoe, I think, because she's from New Zealand. And they talk about their current boyfriends and or flings. And we get another case of crush drama with Abernathy, like we did with Jungle Julia. And her set
And it's a director
crush,
again, which is cool.
Yeah. And it's Cecil. So her set crush, Cecil, made her a mixtape for her birthday and even ate some cake before he fucked Daryl Hannah stand-in on her birthday. So guys, note, don't mess up your girl's birthday for any reason. You call them on their birthday. You don't fuck a Daryl Hannah stand-in on their birthday. You do make them a mixtape. There you go. That was the lesson to learn from this.
Right.
Later.
One of the great things that I think Quentin gets right is kind of how girls really are in real life.
Yeah.
Like even like the first set of girls, like the mean girls and kind of how we talk the talk was a little boy heavy, but I think maybe in your 20s it kind of probably is, which is what I'm guessing these girls are, like in their 20s. Mm-hmm. But yeah. I just thought he really just nailed how loose kind of girls are with each other and potty mouth and the stuff that we really do talk about, so yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Love it. Later at a restaurant, Abernathy tells Lee a funny story about Zoe. And it appears that she's friends with Kim and Abernathy and that she's hanging out with Lee for the first time. And in the story, Abernathy talks about how Zoe fell into a ditch after she had pointed out that there was a ditch, and that this ditch would have killed her, Abernathy, but because Zoe is a cat, they were able to just laugh it off and she didn't get hurt at all. So we find out that Zoe and Kim are stunt women and Abernathy and Lee are actresses. And we also find out that Kim carries a pistol on her, and she explains that it's for emergencies. And Zoe says that if she's going to be in America, she needs to drive a Detroit muscle car. And she wants to drive a Dodge Challenger. Fuck her swinging balls out. And she goes on to say, it has to be a 1970 with a 440 engine. And Kim laughs hysterically at her, but Zoe says that she's got it all worked out. Zoe subscribed to the local paper about a month ago so that she can check the classifieds. And as of yesterday, some dude is selling that exact car with a white paint job. Kim asks if she's going to buy it, and Zoe says that she's just going to test drive it and make the guy think she's going to buy it. Kim realizes that the car she's describing is the same as the car in Vanishing Point. So we get another Vanishing Point reference. And Kim and Zoe reveal that they're gearheads. So they grew up watching car movies, and they don't blame Abernathy for never hearing about it since she's a normal girl. And we also find out that Zoe is a Kiwi, a New Zealander, not an Australian. Get that right.
Don't get it twisted. Right. That's right.
And I really love the way they set up Lee's character in this scene, is being like kind of the ditzy blonde who isn't blonde.
Right.
She's
Right.
so cute
I
and
love her.
innocent.
Yeah.
Yes, but totally lovable.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead is just like perfect in this role.
Yes. Yes. Totally
Did
agree.
not did in the Grindhouse version, did they have the black and white scene?
Oh, I don't think so. Did I miss the black and
Okay.
white scene? What's the black and
Because
white
there's a black
scene?
and white scene where they pull up to get, like, they buy the fashion magazine. Um,
Oh.
because that's the transition. If you notice something
Yeah.
about the second part, all the 70s Grindhouse, the scratchy film, the cut, it's all gone. This is now, and that's the signal that this is a new movie. This is a new movie that we're watching at this point. It's like all bets off from what happened. This is something new going forward, because now it's like the first part was like a Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse movie. Now it's a Quentin Tarantino movie.
I figured it signified some sort of change, but now that you say that, now I realize, yeah, the 70s stuff is all gone.
It's gone.
I didn't.
It's
Yeah.
gone at this point. Yeah, it's gone
Yeah.
from that point on. All the 70s stuff is gone. It's like a brand new ball game at this point.
I never thought of it in that way, in that very smart way, that
Yeah.
very smart, like metaphorical way.
Yeah, that's it's very, it's just because, and it's a shame because in that black and white scene, that's what you get. And as soon as it goes back to color, it's like, wow, this is a vibrant color, no scratches anymore. This is now a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Dang, that's
So true.
crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I missed that scene.
Unfortunately, yeah, I was wondering because I don't remember that in the Grindhouse version either, unfortunately.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, I should have looked that up. I knew to look for the lap dance scene, of course. But I didn't remember that I had missed another scene. Well, in the next scene, the girls show up at a house, kind of on a remote piece of land, seemingly out in the middle of nowhere. And Kim and Zoe check out the car, and they're very pleased with what they find. The guy selling the car appears to be like a mechanic, farmer kind of guy.
Mhm.
Good old
I feel
boy. Yeah.
there you go.
Right.
Yes. And Zoe pulls Kim aside to tell her that she wants to play Ship's Mast. Kim fires off into a very passionate argument as to why they will not be playing Ship's Mast. And she's referring to the last time they did so. And it sounds pretty dangerous. We don't know
Mhm.
exactly what that is yet because we're not gearheads. We're normal girls.
Right.
And Zoe's defense is that she meant that she never wanted to play it again in New Zealand, not in America.
That is probably my favorite exchange in this movie, is that argument between the two of them, because it's handled so well. And Kim
Yeah.
is just really giving it to her, that I would, that no, not only will I say no, but I can physically restrain your ass if you ever bring it up again.
Yes.
And it's such a great, it's like, I meant not in New Zealand. Oh, don't hand me that bullshit. And then she says, but if I knew that I could do it with this muscle car, and then Kim says, okay, strangely enough, that made sense.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
feel like real friends with a real
Right.
history.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
feels like whatever happened was such a big deal
Mhm.
that Kim remembered literally every single word that was said involving that occurrence.
Right.
So
Yep.
then we're also understanding kind of like the impact of what this is that they're
Mhm.
talking about without actually knowing what they're talking about.
Right.
Kim tries to
Exactly.
deny Zoe, but she says that she'll be her backcracking slave while she's there, whenever she wants it. And this is somehow enticing enough to change Kim's mind.
Right.
She must be very good at cracking backs. This is so funny. Maybe, they are stunt women. It's probably
Yeah.
like gold to them.
Might be, yeah.
Kim and Zoe tell Abernathy that they want her and Lee to stay with the creepy guy as collateral while they go off and play. Abernathy is very offended, saying she doesn't want to be left behind by the cool kids. Abernathy makes a deal with them. If she can talk the guy into letting them test drive the car, then they have to let her tag along. She convinces him by leaving Lee as collateral and showing him her spread in a magazine and saying that she's a famous actress.
Mm-hmm.
He's very
And
excited by this news.
he asks, is it a porno? And she goes, yes, but don't bring it up. She's very shy about it.
Very opportunistic of Abernathy. I love that split second of her, like, kind of taking that in and then adjusting and being
and she does that a couple times in the conversation when he asks, which one is that, the colored girl? And she goes, yes, Kim is the girl of color. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. How do I respond to this person? So funny. And I mean, this is kind of messed up, but obviously it's played for laughs when we see them drive off and the guy's approaching Lee and like the top half of his body is out of frame and she's waking up because she's passed out.
Right. And she just gulp.
Yeah.
Yeah, she audibly says gulp.
And I love that they used the line from the old Mr. Microphone commercial. Hey,
Yes!
good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later.
Yes!
Oh. That's a thing I didn't get. Tell me about it.
Do you know what that is? Oh.
I don't.
No,
Sorry.
Mr. Microphone was, it probably was from the late 70s or early 80s when that thing was around, because it was like big technology back then. Now it's cheap shit, but back then it was like big time, you know?
That's awesome.
Jessica, in your spare time, go on YouTube and Google Mr. Microphone commercial. It is completely worth your time. I promise you.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, I'm writing it down.
You will see that movie differently. Like, you'll catch it next time you watch it and you'll laugh for sure.
Okay, I expect you to splice this into the YouTube video.
Oh, don't worry. Already done.
Perfect. So now out on a desolate road, Kim and Zoe scope out the area and they prepare for ship's mast while telling Abernathy to shut the hell up. Right. And she keeps kind of getting offended and trying to speak up and like yell at them. And it's like, they explained that they're doing something serious and that you can only come if you shut the fuck up. So it's kind of annoying.
And I love that where she's like, where Kim's like, I wear the jacket. And Zoe's like, oh, it's my jacket. And she's like, I thought you're my slave.
Yeah.
So you see her like angrily take the jacket off and she's like, I'm the one on the bonnet. She goes, bonnet, fuck, you're on the hood.
Exactly. I know. Kim's my favorite. Yeah. Honestly, I love her. And so, yes, they gear up with their cool driving gloves and Kim steals Zoe's leather jacket and Abernathy starts getting all mouthy when Kim tries to be direct with her. And she says, I've got shit on my mind, time to shut up. And while driving, Zoe crawls out of the passenger side window up to the top of the car and grabs the two belts that they had tied to the door frames. And then she slides down to lay on the hood. Kim tells Abernathy to crawl up to the front, where we see her face change from terrified to excited. And that transition is like so masterfully done.
It's done very well. Yes. Like you buy it. You really do buy it.
Totally. I love Rosario Dawson. And I feel like just this little clip of her acting is just so good.
I love her.
But we do see Kim is very serious business and they have all these little cues for each other, so when Zoe's up on top of the car, they do a knock, to like let each other know, okay, it's okay to slide down onto the hood because of course she's impeding her sight by, climbing down. And that's probably the reason Abernathy comes up to the front too, to kind of just get another set of eyes as well as they can. And so they start driving faster, and Zoe is yelling out in joy when all of a sudden we see stuntman Mike scoping them out with a pair of binoculars not too far off in the distance. He peels off to meet them, and Abernathy notices him approaching from behind. And right before he hits them, she says, "Oh my God." And then the girls start getting really nervous really fast because he repeatedly hits them again and again. And Zoe loses her grip on one of the belts. He drives up next to them and he hits them from the side. And Zoe loses her grip on the other belt and is just holding onto the edge of the hood by the near the windshield. Right. All the girls are screaming and shouting, and they're screaming like obscenities at him too. Which, I mean, I don't know. That's like a tough. That's a tough situation to be in. What do you do? Plead with this guy, or obviously he's a fucking asshole, so you just lean into it. I don't know.
Right.
So I just have to say, watching this, I This looked all completely real to me. Did you guys get that? Like this was.
I mean, when Tarantino said he never understood using CGI for car chases or cars or anything with cars. So he goes, you've got to have like these vehicles like speeding. Now, how much of it was it speeding, or did he speed it up as they were going? I don't know, but it definitely is real what they're doing.
It just adds to the, like, you feel terrified watching this.
Yes.
Like, I'm holding my breath this whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware that, like, oh my God, they're really doing this. Not to the point like it took me out or anything, but it just made me, like, seriously, I was holding my breath for I don't know how long. You know what I mean? It was great.
It is. It's so great. And it is kind of a long scene, or maybe it just feels long because you're
it
holding
plays
your breath.
for a while. Yeah. And he's after them for a while. And the picture behind you, Jessica, is the one that I think is the most harrowing when she's facing that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and holding on that way. You're like, oh, God, this is, you know, one more hit and that's the end.
Totally.
And
I know. And the only thing that's helping is just that they're like keeping up their speed just enough, you know, where she's not completely flying off. There's a couple of times where she's kind of like literally on the front of the car, like holding on to the bumper. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so freaky. And I love it. So good. And that scene, even though it's kind of a long car chase, it's entertaining the entire time.
Oh, yeah. You know, like Tammy was saying, you're holding your breath that whole time, you know, and it just keeps getting escalating and escalating. And it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know, stuntman Mike is still hitting them, and he starts taunting them vocally as well. And I think now the girls know for sure this guy's a psycho. The girls spin out and they head in the opposite direction of stuntman Mike, but he catches up pretty quickly. And they're all yelling obscenities at him. And Zoe gets turned around, and now she's holding onto the front of the hood and the bumper on occasion. And Kim is focused and tears are streaming down her face. Stuntman Mike drives off the road for a minute to avoid an oncoming truck, but quickly rejoins the chase. He begins to hit their car really hard from behind again. And Zoe is practically on the front of the car, holding onto the bumper. The girls turn all of a sudden, and Mike spins out off on the side of the road. He gets out laughing like a madman and telling the ladies, "That was fun. Well, adios." And then Kim shoots his ass.
Yes.
Yes. Gets him in the shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Love it.
Then he speeds off.
And both Abernathy and Kim are crying after he drives off. They look towards the bushes ahead of them, grief-stricken and shocked, when all of a sudden, Zoe hops up above the bushes and says, "I'm okay.
I'm okay."
Right.
The girls rejoice and they laugh together. And Zoe asks if they want to go get him. Kim tries to leave Abernathy behind, but she says, "Fuck that shit. Let's kill this bastard."
Right.
Love that scene.
Yeah.
So, love this kind of tonal switch in the movie.
And when they go to, the best part is, and Tarantino said the played the best is when they went to Kurt Russell, and he's such a little bitch.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like the smallest little arm wound you can get from being shot. But he's basically acting like he was just riddled with machine gun fire.
Oh, I was laughing so hard during that scene. Oh my God.
It's so funny. I love it. And I forgot to mention Abernathy says, "Of course, the cat."
Oh yeah.
She's all right.
Right. When she was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that part. My mom and I used to always reference that line for some reason. Where we're like, "I'm okay." Just jump in the air. So they drive off to epic grindhouse music after Zoe retrieves a random rusted pipe from the side of the road. And she holds it like a jouster with a lance and hangs out the passenger side window. I love, too, how they were all just genuinely totally freaked the fuck out.
Yep.
And then it's like you just see like all of the relief just wash over them just in that second of knowing that Zoe's fine, her knowing that she's fine too, and then them just getting this new adrenaline rush of, oh my God, let's go kill this bastard, and they were like so excited about it.
And then she grabs that pipe and she's basically riding the car. Like she just is half in and half out with like almost like in a joust,
Exactly.
Stance holding that pipe.
Yes. So awesome.
This is a very unique situation. 99.9% of women who just had this happen to them could not now turn around and do what these girls need to do to get back at him.
Right.
You have these two stunt car drivers who are in this unique opportunity to be able to actually give this guy what he deserves. And it's just so awesome.
Right.
Exactly. Because they're thrill seekers too, so.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
very
love
true.
It. That's what I was saying too when that one listener commented, that it feels kind of fetishistic, or however somebody who doesn't have a lisp says that. And how I was saying like, yeah, but it's kind of like so ridiculous and so like such a specific, set of circumstances and vibe that it's like so over the top that you can't really, I don't, it just doesn't feel icky to me because of that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right.
So good.
It suddenly it goes from being like a killer movie to a revenge film.
Exactly.
I love revenge films too. So yeah, I'm totally on board now.
Yeah,
I already was, but
I'm not like a big revenge film person in general. But when it's kind of like fun and over the top, then it's, easier for me to be on board.
And with Kurt Russell completely doing a 180 and playing that character so different in this scene,
exactly.
I think that helps sell it even more.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. Stuntman Mike pulls over and he cries about his subtle injury while chugging some whiskey and pouring it over his wound. And he's acting like a complete baby. It's great.
So great.
All of a sudden, the girls appear from behind him and they hit him real hard from behind. And he like spits out his whiskey in anticipation because he notices right before it happens.
Right.
Which I also love, because it's like that kind of fear that he's been inflicting on these groups of girls.
He did it to the girls in the first part. He gave them they had 1 second reaction. He had a 1 second to react when he saw them. Yep.
Right. And that's probably like the worst moment. You know what I mean? It's just like that feeling in your gut, like the pit of your stomach, just a second before you get hit. And Zoe goes and attacks him with her pipe through his window as many times as possible before he drives off. She's just bashing him with it. So, and she's like clearly having so much fun doing it that's like the cherry on top.
Right.
She jumps back into the Dodge Challenger and the girls begin their pursuit. Kim hits him from behind while talking shit and making very lewd comments about how she's fucking him from behind pretty much.
Right. Yeah.
I did think that got a little too much at one point, because she kept saying
that's what she could
like,
go. Yeah. Tap that ass. Yeah.
Tap that ass. Yes. Right. I was like, okay, we get it. You're taking back your power. You go, girl. And then they continue to chase him and they hit him from behind while avoiding cows. Both cars fly through the air after hitting a dirt ramp and onto
I like it when they went through the boat. He's like, did you just hit a boat?
Did you just hit a boat?
And I love this part right after they go off of that ramp. We get some really funky chase music.
Yes.
And it's just great. It's all those little details.
Yes.
Just like make this movie so awesome. And they're swerving between cars on the road. They've joined like actual traffic on a highway. And they're trying to catch up with Stuntman Mike. So we're watching them just swerve between all these cars. It's fun. And then Mike is able to put a little space between them and he starts to become a little hopeful when he sees the girls catch back up to him. And he's like kind of just pleading to himself in the car, like, oh, God, why?
Like he's shouting out of the window, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. And they're they've pulled up alongside him now.
Yep.
And he's trying to apologize, and he claims that he was just playing around.
Yeah.
And then the girls hit him from the side, and they continue to taunt and chase him. And he suddenly hits his brakes, and he forces the girls up a sort of dirt on-ramp to seemingly nowhere. And we watch relief wash over his face for a few moments before the music cues, and we see the girls are driving on a dirt road just above him.
And they keep going, please don't dead end. Please don't dead end.
Yes. Yes. They're all saying this chant together. It feels like this really magical moment, the way that they all just start chanting it like it's their spell. And the road converges with the one that Mike is on, and they hit him really hard, breaking his arm and totally fucking up his death-proof car. And they pull him out of the car, and he's
and the
screaming.
Way he's screaming in that scene.
Yeah. He's like, I have a broken arm. Like, they give a shit.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So
oh, this arm? And they pull him out.
Oh, so good. And they stand him up, and they formed a circle around him, and they just relentlessly beat the shit out of him in the middle of the road. And they're just like punching him, which is great. I love just watching a girl just like punch. And, they do a little bit like, you know what I mean? And then they get back to it.
Shaking her hand. Yeah.
Yes. And then Zoe, ends him with a roundhouse kick. And the girls jump in the air and kind of freeze frame, cheering while Chick Habit begins to play, which is another song that I've just completely fallen in love with because of this
great
movie.
Song. Yeah.
Yep.
And we thought that was the end, but then a few moments later, Abernathy actually lands the death blow, holding her leg up in the air over him and letting the heel fall into his face with full force. And that's how this movie ends, with tons of awesome music over the credits.
Yep.
Yay! So,
what a good
Tammy.
pick. Yes.
Oh, what a good pick. So, Tammy, do you want to give us final thoughts and your rating?
I just have one little beef I'd like to add. I don't like that they left the girl with the guy. The girl with the car guy. That's my only thing. But no, I rated this a 10 out of 10. This is freaking amazing. Why did I never watch this? Because I really like Quentin Tarantino movies. I think he can be slightly problematic. We didn't bring up the whole Harvey Weinstein thing and all that's a discussion for another day. We'll leave that out of here. I just want to focus on the awesome actors here and what they did, the art that they made. But I don't know how I never watched this, why I never watched this. It wasn't a conscious choice. It just fell by the wayside somehow for me. But will now be in my regular rotation. I think I will also be purchasing the soundtrack. Another one of his, another soundtrack of his that I listen to all the time is the Django, which if you guys it's so good. But I think I'll be getting this one also, and I gave it a 10 out of 10. So thank you, Dave, for the wonderful suggestion. I loved it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it that much. That's awesome.
I did. I loved it. Yeah.
Great. Oh my God, that makes me so happy.
But the thing is, I want to be where you I need to literally, I know I missed, there's so many, this needs more than one watch, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I need to now really go back, and I think this is one of those movies where you'll pick stuff out every time you watch it. So
and it doesn't lose. It's funny because it doesn't lose any of its strength, like emotional strength or the pull you in and excite you. It loses none of that on repeat viewing, because I was just as tied into it. I was just as tied into everything. You anticipate it, of course, because you know what's coming, but it still has its power. It's still just as strong as ever.
I totally agree. Yeah. No matter how many times, and Tammy knows I'm actually not a huge rewatcher. But
I'm the queen of rewatchers. So
yes. And this is one that I actually do rewatch semi-frequently. And it's just as entertaining every time, even though I know, that stuntman Mike is evil. It doesn't lose any flavor due to knowing that. So that's great. Dave, give us your whatever you want to tell us about, how you feel about this movie. I've heard you mention it and the soundtrack a bunch of times actually on different podcasts. I know I think that you've mentioned Chick Habit maybe specifically on you know how you bring up the soundtracks on I'm so
Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
the Considering
yeah.
the Cinema.
I'm not sure if I. I'm not. Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure if I did. That I know I did one on Quentin Tarantino because he uses music so well. He's like right up there with Martin Scorsese is how he uses music. I think the two of them use music perfectly in their films.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think it's great. And um, two things I want to give a shout out to Ian Urza. He's on the odd weeks when I'm not on Land of the Creeps. He's on the Double Double where they're looking at Italian films, and Ian's like an aficionado of Italian cinema. And he pointed something out to me. And actually, when I was texting the both of you back and forth, I gave you the wrong movie. Tarantino uses some cues from Italian films in like Italian like sort of grindhouse style films in his movies, and he's done that quite a bit. I mean, he did that in Kill Bill, although he was using like not just Italian, but he was using like uh, just that genre. Like he's very much influenced by like the movies of the '70s and all that, and he lifts music from it. And it's really kind of cool what he did. The scene where, and this is what Ian said, the scene where he's photographing Abernathy and Zoe and everything. There's a musical cue in there, and it was by Ennio Morricone, and it was from actually I said Suspiria, but it's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And it's the scene when the killer is taking pictures of the girl in the opening. It's that music. So while he's taking pictures of them, he uses the music from Bird with the Crystal Plumage where the killer is taking pictures of his victim.
God,
That is so crazy.
Attention to detail. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the action theme from the Tough Ones plays midway through the car chase. So after they go over the ramp, that's what it is. It's the action theme from the Tough Ones, which was also released as Rome Armed to the Teeth. That's the music he uses when the chase, once they go over the ramp. They were saying the sort of chase music. That's what he uses for that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is.
Yeah, it really is like you're saying, the attention to detail that he puts into it, and he does have an encyclopedic knowledge of film, and he uses it all. Some of his detractors are like, well, he's just stealing. No, he's not. He's repurposing, and he's making art out of it. And he's not just stealing from it because he's like, okay, well, because you mentioned Django, Tammy, and there's a song in there. He uses the theme from the original Django, obviously, in there, but he also uses a song from His Name Was King, which is a Klaus Kinski spaghetti western that I had seen. Klaus Kinski's in it. I don't think he plays the hero. I think he plays the villain. But I've seen that movie, and that is another great song. I always liked that song, and so I actually, when I got the soundtrack, I wanted it for several things. I also love the scene, and I think this is one I did mention on DVD Infatuation in Django, when they're riding off and that Jim Croce song plays. That just sort of really soft Jim Croce song is playing as they're out sort of, doing the job of a bounty hunter. But that's what Tarantino does, is the way he uses his music in his movies. It's just great. It's just like for example, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I've always listened to Neil Diamond's Brother Love Traveling Salvation show. And I always thought, oh, it's okay. It's not one of my favorites. It's now my favorite Neil Diamond song because when he used it in that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right. That's great.
So, I already liked that song, but yeah, that just heightened it for me.
Heightened it even more. Yeah. And so now it is my favorite Neil Diamond song because of that. Other things in this. Well, I had something else I was going to, I can't remember. Shoot. Well, I already mentioned how it's like two movies. It really is two movies.
Yes.
In one. They really do push Vanishing Point in this, and I'm glad they do, because of the movies they mentioned, Vanishing Point is my favorite, because it's almost like a lyrical Western in a way. This guy's driving this Challenger for a customer. He's driving it, and the cops are chasing him, and Cleavon Little plays a blind DJ who is guiding him. Like he's helping Kowalski and making him almost like a folk hero. But Kowalski's not a likable guy because he's taking drugs as he's doing this, and there are flashbacks. He used to be a cop and all this stuff. It's a really, really strong film, and I love it. I love that they brought up to. And I would have liked to have seen what happened when they returned the car.
I did think about that too, especially because of poor Lee.
I can see them driving up and just saying, "We'll take it." With it being beat up like it was, just we'll take it.
Oh my God, that would have been so fun.
Yeah.
If they just added that as like
if
a
they
little
just threw that little bit in there, yeah. Right.
That's great.
But no, I just, and it just shows what I think. Like I said, it just shows what Tarantino, he's getting better. And I remember, and it was during an interview when he was on with Howard Stern, which actually Howard Stern, it became a very controversial interview when they got to the topic of Roman Polanski, and I think sort of rightfully so. But he had mentioned that, he wants to stop after his next movie is going to be his last, and he is making a movie about a film critic. Actually, he's making that, like, and he's basing it on a guy he used to read who wrote for a porno magazine. But he used to read his reviews, and he thought this guy's really good at reviewing movies. And it's sort of based on that guy. But he says he's going to stop after this because he has, like, sort of a respect for his filmography. He says he wants you to be able to pick any movie out and say, this is a strong movie. And, he pointed to, like, some directors start to lose it. He mentioned about Billy Wilder, and Billy Wilder lost it at the end, and he made some crap. I mean, his last movie, Buddy Buddy, was a total piece of shit. I saw it on cable when I was a kid, and it had Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in it, which is the reason I wanted to see it. And I'm watching, I go, this is just awful. And it was a bad movie. And that's what, if a director goes on too long, they tend to lose it a little bit. And I think that, Mel Brooks, Blazing Saddles is a comedy masterpiece. Young Frankenstein's a comedy masterpiece. Dracula Dead and Loving It is, what the hell was he thinking? Like, what in this is funny? I didn't even bother watching History of the World Part 2, and I've been wanting that movie. I actually saw History of the World Part 1 in the movie theater in 1981. My father took me and my 9-year-old brother to see that movie in the theater.
Wow.
And it was all based on the 15-second commercial of "The Lord has given unto you these 10 commandments." That's all we saw. And he had taken us to see Stir Crazy the year before, and we handled that pretty well. So he thought we'd be okay with this, but it was we were asking a lot of questions throughout History of the World Part 1, my brother and I. Was like, why did that feather go up? What is that? But anyway, see, now it's a problem. See, this is what happens. I lost my train of thought. Completely lost my train of thought here as to where I was even. Oh, with directors and, like, the movies that they make. Tarantino does not want that to happen with him. And he has other interests. I mean, he has that podcast he's doing now. He did write Cinema Speculation. He's doing a part 2 of that. He's talked about maybe writing a play at some point. So he does have other interests. He doesn't need to keep making movies. Now, selfishly, we want him to keep making movies. We want him to keep going, but he wants to go out on top. And I can absolutely understand that when you look at the filmmakers who just made a couple too many. They had this brilliant career and then just made a couple too many.
I just don't feel like he's on the cusp. He hasn't usually, like, I mean, don't you start to slide a little? I don't feel like he's started to slide a little.
I can see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood eventually becoming my favorite. And right now, Pulp Fiction is still my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. I see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood could possibly become my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. It's that good. It got better the second time I saw it, even better the third time, and I can't wait to see it again. And he even wrote a book about that. Based on that, where he gives you the backstory of the Brad Pitt character and why people really like. There's this sort of thing about maybe he killed his wife and that's what's happening, and he puts even more into that. And I love that he's not afraid to change history. We were talking about this just the other day on the podcast. He's not afraid to change history, and you saw that in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah,
with what happens at the very end, in that theater. And I don't want to spoil that because that's not the movie we're talking about. We gave spoilers for Death Proof. I don't want to spoil that one. But I just remember when I was, I've told this story a few times already, and I think I just told it on a recent podcast. I might have been with Jay. I can't remember. But when they did a sequel to The Dirty Dozen for TV, a TV movie in 1984, I want to say. Their mission was to go kill Hitler. Well, you knew from the start it wasn't going to happen. They never
Mm,
changed history. History was sort of this sacred cow, and they never changed it. So the
right.
whole movie just turned out to be the mission's going to fail. And of
Yeah.
course, that's what happened. The mission failed. Tarantino's like, it's a movie. Why do I have to adhere to history? And that's
Yeah.
what he did at the end of the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too. And I loved the ending of that and where he went with that.
Yeah.
You know, because that guy gives the line that he gave to, Sharon Tate. I'm the devil, and I'm, and doing the devil's work or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
Brad Pitt says, "I know you. What's your name again?" And he says that, and he goes, "No, it was something stupider than that." And you just knew that he's always going to have the upper hand in this scene because they went into the house they weren't supposed to go into.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
and I love that
too.
like he doesn't say, hey, this is a movie, we don't have to be sacred, history is not sacred, we can do whatever we want in a movie.
I mean, he makes smart choices when it comes to that too,
Yeah.
because he's changing like pieces of history that we all wish we could change.
I was
Like, I
saying
don't think that
Yes.
He gets us the ending we
anybody,
want. Yeah,
Right.
that everybody
Yeah.
wanted. Yeah.
I don't think anybody's like on the other side of that,
Right.
on either
And-
of those cases for the
and
most
sometimes-
part,
Yeah, just as throwaway lines. Like in this one, I laughed so hard when she's given the code. She's like, I'm the one on the bonnet. Like, fuck the bonnet, you're on the hood. It's like, you're in America, you're not on the bonnet, you're on the hood. Just lines like that, and even in Inglourious Bastards when he shoots they're bringing oh god, the actor who played, he won an Oscar for it. Crap, what's his name? See, I'm so awful with names. He also was in Django, and he won an Oscar for Django.
Oh.
The German actor,
Yes.
Christoph Waltz.
Yes,
Christoph
I love
Waltz.
him. Yes.
I was just
Yes.
looking him up.
But he's got that line where he shoots Christoph Waltz's assistant, and Christoph was, I was promised that man's life. You'll be shot for this. And Brad Pitt's like, nah, they won't shoot me. I'll get chewed out. I've been chewed out before. It's like,
Right. Yeah, he's just very like nonchalant about the whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Love
and you
it.
find out that like there's not a lot of ad-libbing with Quentin Tarantino. A lot of his dialogue is like how he wrote it.
Yeah.
There's not a
Because he's
lot
very,
of
like,
and that makes
meticulous.
what the actors do even better because they're making it seem natural. They're making it seem just like
Yeah.
natural conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point because it was something I really thought about while watching this again, is like he picks like the perfect actors
Yes.
that know how
Yes.
to work with his dialogue to make it actually feel natural,
Mhm.
because it is so stylized and so unnatural. So I was kind of thinking about that when we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
Well, and he doesn't need to he's huge, but he doesn't always feel like he needs to cast like the biggest stars in his movies, even though he probably could.
Right.
He
yeah,
gets
I'm
the
sure a lot of
perfect
people
people.
they'd love to work with him,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, he did,
Totally.
I guess, obviously now he's with he's like Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt are two of the biggest stars around, but he cast them because they're perfect for those roles. When they're in those movies, they're perfect for those roles. Leonardo DiCaprio was perfect for that role and you hated him in Django Unchained.
Oh, yes.
And then
He's
as
so
Rick
good,
Dalton,
though.
and probably one of the greatest scenes that DiCaprio did was that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where they're doing the TV show and he's got the little girl like held hostage and they
Yes.
come in. The way he delivered those lines, it is, and even at the end of it, the little girl comes up and she's like, that's one of the, and he threw her on the ground. She comes up and she goes, that was one of the greatest, performances I've ever seen. And, it
Yeah.
shows you it's about workman Hollywood where this guy has to work at it. Like he's not a natural actor. You see him rehearsing on tape. Like he recorded the other lines on tape and he's doing them in this awful accent. And he's floating in his pool, delivering his lines to the tape he recorded. But this is what he's
Yeah.
got to do. He's got to work at it. He's not like a natural talent. He's got to work at it. But every now and again, he can really nail it. And he does it in that scene. And that's what he's shown. Like this is the workman side of Hollywood. This is not the big stars. These are the people who had to go to Italy in the 60s and 70s to keep working because they were passed over here in the States. This is, And then this is like with Clint Eastwood and even Telly Savalas and some other actors all going over to Italy to keep working.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's my favorite scene in that movie, too.
It's
I remember
so
when I
good.
watched that in the theater, just turning and looking at my husband, and we were just like, oh my God, that's so
Yes.
good.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Great.
Well, I mean,
what
and
would
he single-handedly saved John Travolta's career.
He definitely brought it back. Yes, and then Travolta kept it going for a while, and then he's doing Battlefield Earth.
Yeah. Scientology, man.
Right. It's like Tarantino said, well, I did what I could,
Yeah.
That is so funny. He's never gonna live that one down. John
No.
Travolta.
No, he made a few questionable choices. And I like John Travolta. I do. I like John Travolta as an actor. I always have ever since the Welcome Back Kotter days. I mean, I used to love that show.
Oh, me
And
too.
he was great in Welcome Back Kotter. And those early movies like Saturday Night Fever and Grease. I go back and forth with Grease. I love the musical sequences. I think they're amazing in Grease. They have such an energy. But the stuff when they're not singing, when it's just a dialogue, is like nails on a chalkboard for me. It really is. Those lines are just nails on a chalkboard when they're not singing. But the musical numbers in Grease have such an amazing energy. They really do. It's what makes that movie watchable.
Yes.
Yeah,
I just wish I could find just the musical sequences and not the back and forth dialogue that they're doing, because it's just ugh.
That is so funny.
Well,
Dave, what would you rate Death Proof?
Well, you know what? The Grindhouse is one of my all-time favorites. I got to go 10 out of 10. Like the whole experience. And part of it is I do prefer Death Proof to Planet Terror. And that's taken nothing away from Planet Terror, because I have a lot of fun with that movie. I really do. But like I said, that feels more like a spoof of a Grindhouse movie. This one is more of like embracing the Grindhouse movie and giving you one, at least for the first half. He's like, here's the Grindhouse version, and it's a Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse film, and then here's a Quentin Tarantino film at the end. Now we're getting into the revenge, but now forget the scratches, forget all that. I'm giving you like some now it's just a movie. Now we're forgetting all that stuff. Put it aside. Now you're just going to get a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this is going to blow everybody away. But this is also a 10 out of 10 for me.
Shocking. Shocking.
So we just have a big love fest going on tonight.
Yeah.
I feel like, have Tammy and I ever both had a 10 out of 10 on any movie ever?
You and I usually are just, it's rare that we even meet in the middle sometimes. I think that's why we have a good podcast. But I mean, yeah, this was a no-brainer for sure.
Yes, undeniably good. That's so awesome. Well, let's see. I'm trying to remember some trivia off the top of my head. I do know that Quentin sadly said that this was like the worst movie that he's made. And that made me a little sad. Because I love this movie.
It didn't do well. It
right,
failed,
it didn't
the Grindhouse
do well.
thing failed at the box office. I think it was the length of it, but man, I could have sat there another half hour. It didn't bother me that it was like 3+ hours, 3.5 hours, whatever it was. You got 2 movies out of it, plus the trailers. I loved it. I thought it was my favorite theater experience of that year. I could probably maybe for a couple years there. I just loved that whole experience of sitting there watching it. It did not do well, and I think that might be clouding his that might be part of the reason why he says that, because it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie at all. I mean, it's very well made.
Yes, it's great. It makes me sad that I think it probably like bruised his ego a little bit that it didn't do that great. But it was also like a thing of people just not understanding, because I did read or see that, after the first movie, people would start leaving because they didn't even know like what a double bill was.
They didn't know there was another one coming. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's just ridiculous, unfortunately. But I remember when this movie came out, Rotten Tomatoes put up like alphabetical list for Grindhouse movies, and they gave you one for A and B and C. And I remember just poring over that list and trying to see as many of the movies on that list as I could. Some of them I'd already seen, like they had Coffee on there, the Pam Grier film, and I'd seen that. But all of these other ones like Fight for Your Life, which is a really, really just, that's a one-time watch, and then you're never going to want to see that movie again. And they had Ilsa the Wicked Warden and like all those kind of movies on there. And it was just like, it just really sort of brought that back to the forefront, at least for movie fans. It obviously didn't for the general public, but at least for movie fans, it brought that era back for a while and those movies became, they sort of joined the conversation again, and they were just being talked about. And I loved that. And I loved getting to see a lot of those movies again. And I think he was really true to the spirit of them. By the way, I was wrong. It was not Gene Seberg. It was Bridget Bardot. It was in that picture above Jungle Julia when she's laying and like the same pose. It was Bridget Bardot. So I don't know why I thought it was Gene Seberg. For some reason, I looked at it quick and I said, it just looked to me to be Gene Seberg, but no, it was not. And I don't know, but because Bridget Bardot and Gene Seberg, other than being both blonde, they really don't look a lot alike. So I don't know why I thought it was Gene Seberg, to be honest with you.
Was Gene Seberg maybe, because I know in one of those video clips that we were watching about like picking out the girls for the movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know Rose McGowan, they were trying to make her look like a specific actress for Death Proof. Was it maybe Gene Seberg?
It wasn't Gene Seberg. I forget.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I don't think it was Bridget Bardot either. But I
no,
know
it wasn't Bridget Bardot either. But it was a very pretty blonde actress.
Yes, I can't remember. They did mention that in that special feature, and I can't remember who they went with. But it's funny because Quentin Tarantino said that Robert Rodriguez is like, she's in my movie. Is it going to work in yours? And Quentin Tarantino's in both. Tarantino plays a part in Planet Terror, but he said they did that all the time, and they did. Roger Corman, when he was doing those New World pictures, he was reusing actors. I mean, Pam Grier and Sid Haig, I think, were in every other movie for about 5 years that came out of there. And he's like, Rose McGowan is like the Pam Grier because she's in both of these movies. And he goes, and I'm sort of Sid Haig. He goes, in Planet Terror, I'm bad Sid Haig, and in this one, I'm good Sid Haig.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And even the guy who was selling the fashion magazine, that's a scene that wasn't in the Grindhouse one, but it was in the was in the Death Proof, who was selling the fashion magazine. He played the guy whose arm gets amputated in Planet Terror. So they were just doing crossovers of these, like the same actors. And that was in part because that is what they would do with a lot of these movies. You would see they'd appear in 7, 8 movies in a year. And just keep going from road to road. Dick Miller. I mean, I don't know that Joe Dante or Roger Corman ever made a movie that Dick Miller wasn't
in. Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing all the interviews with Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, it feels like this is such a passion project. And I feel like that's why both of the movies are so great.
Yeah.
And I know that they were like both filming at the same time a lot of the time, and using like a lot of the same equipment and everything and some of the same actors. And I think they had met because Quentin Tarantino would do like old screenings, with old Grindhouse pictures and like old commercials and stuff, just random stuff from the good old days. And Robert Rodriguez would come over and it kind of like sparked their beautiful friendship.
Yep.
I would call it. And when they talk about each other and their projects together and stuff, like they're so excited and it just seems like so genuine and so like passionate,
Yes.
I just love it.
Yeah. It's great. And just to listen to them, like you're saying, talking about films, and I love it when he'll talk about what was inspiring him to do these things, and who he was thinking of when he was writing these characters and everything, and it's just there's a passion there. There's a passion just for cinema, and it's not just that era. I mean, he knows a lot about I remember him talking about The Leopard, which is this 60s Luciano Visconti. Luciano Visconti? Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I think it is Luciano Visconti. Movie that Burt Lancaster's in, and it's this like sort of grand. It's like the Italian like revolution, and it's like a period piece and everything, and it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And he talks about that, and I remember him talking about the Chungking Express. He turned me on to Chungking Express because of how, and he likes these sort of romantic. It's a Hong Kong romance, and he was just sort of he saw it when he was promoting Pulp Fiction, and he actually saw it in Hong Kong,
Wow.
and just what it meant to him. And he turned me on to that movie. That's one of my favorite movies now too. It's a lot of fun. He had a video series called Rolling Thunder. That was his label, the Rolling Thunder video label,
Mm.
and he would introduce the movies. And he would just give you little stories about them, and I'm talking like he did Chungking Express, and then the next one was Switchblade Sisters, the Jack Hill girl gang movie, and he talks just
Mhm.
as passionately about both of them.
That's so awesome. I think
Yeah.
I heard him recently. I think it was, Mick Garris had the postmortem podcast that
Mm-hmm.
he just recently concluded, which made me really sad because I love
Oh
that
yeah.
podcast. But I think Quentin Tarantino was his last guest on there, and I
Oh
think he'd
wow.
been trying to get him, like this whole time that the podcast has been running, and he finally got him on for the
Th-
last episode.
That's awesome. That's
And I
awesome. And
think I'm pretty sure that's where I heard this, where Quentin Tarantino was saying that his mom and his stepfather were both, kind of cinephiles.
yes.
And his stepfather had so much knowledge about movies that he grew up like as a little boy thinking, that like when you become a grown up, you have to like know all this information about movies,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Yes.
he just like started becoming like a student of film because of his stepfather's love and him thinking like, oh cool, when I'm a grown up I'm gonna have all this film knowledge, that he like at some point surpassed him because of that. And I just think that it's so cool and
Yeah.
innocent, and just like
Yes.
the way that he came about his love for film and thinking that he just had to keep devouring like every single thing that he could having to do with movies.
And that's what he did. And he said
Yeah.
he wasn't a great student in school because he said the only thing he liked, and it was history. He said history was his favorite because he could almost picture these things as an epic movie. Like what was going on in history, he could picture it as a movie. So he said he liked history, but hated every other subject, couldn't care less about them. And
Yeah.
and now for a while there, let's be honest, he was working for minimum wage and living in the back room of a video store. So it's not like his lack of education, he made it work for him all the time. But
Yeah.
he was getting into what he wanted to do and what he loved to do. And then he wrote the screenplays, and you know, one of the things when he was talking about Reservoir Dogs, I have this book of interviews with him where he said novels have the freedom that they could jump around in the timeline, and he goes, movies should have that same thing, and that's what he did in Reservoir Dogs. He opens with that they're sitting around the table. The next thing we see, Harvey Keitel's racing down the road, and Tim Ross in the back screaming bloody murder because he's been shot in the gut, and we're like,
Yeah.
what the hell happened? We don't know how do we get from them walking in slow motion out of that diner to this scene of them in the back. And that's what he said. They could jump around. That's what they did in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And this is a spoiler for Pulp Fiction. So, if you don't listen for a second, but we see John Travolta die at like in the middle of the movie, but then he appears again in an earlier scene through the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're looking at it saying, okay, we know what happens to this guy, but yet we're still drawn into that scene. And that's another one of my favorite lines. And when Samuel L. Jackson has Tim Roth the gun on him after they're trying to rob that diner they're sitting in, and he goes, now give me my wallet back. He goes, which one's yours? He goes, the one that says bad motherfucker on it. And he's like, okay, oh geez, and he reaches in, and that's exactly what it says on the wallet.
That's so good. That's such a great point to bring up too, because we're talking about how Quentin Tarantino is such a like student of film, and
Mm-hmm.
he loves old films especially, and he has such reverence for them. But then he also like breaks the rules because he's kind of innovative,
Yes,
where he says, wait, why do we have to do it this way? Why don't we do it this way? Even though he's
exactly.
somebody who
Yeah,
follows like the old ways. So it's
right.
really a cool blending.
It is. He's changing
Yeah.
things up, and he's mining the past and putting his own spin on it. And that speech that Samuel L. Jackson delivers when he's at the beginning, when he's going to shoot the kid, and then he says it again to Tim Roth later on. That whole thing of, I'm besieged by evil men, but you will know that I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. That's not a biblical quote. That is the opening scroll of a movie called The Bodyguard with Sonny Chiba from the 70s. It has another name, but it says all that. But instead of "you will know I am the Lord," it will say you will know that I am Chiba the bodyguard when I lay my vengeance upon thee. It's like he just replaced Lord. He just didn't take Chiba the bodyguard. That entire thing, and maybe it is biblical, but he got it from that Sonny Chiba movie. It's called a few things. It might be called Karate Kiba, but I know here in I have it as The Bodyguard.
Okay.
And it's
that is so interesting.
And I didn't know that. I seen Pulp Fiction first, and then when I saw that they have that whole score, I go, wait a second, that is very familiar. And I'm going, oh, that's what Samuel L. Jackson says in Pulp Fiction, word for word until the very end.
That is so great. That's the thing too, is like there's so many details throughout all of his movies, and you have to be like a big cinephile to pick them all out, probably. You know what I mean, without looking it up.
And to be honest, you have to see them multiple times to pick them up, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something like in Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis jumps into that cab and the girl's driving and she's sort of like smoothing she's sort of asking him, he just killed the guy, how does that feel? Like she's sort of into that whole thing. The backdrop is like one of those old sort of fake like they're not actually driving down the street. It's like a real projection.
Yes.
Right.
And he didn't have to do that, but that was a choice. That was a stylistic choice he made to make it that sort of artificial background for that scene.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's sad to hear that he doesn't think this movie is one of his better ones, because I think it's filled. It seems so masterful.
Yeah.
That he doesn't like to do this kind of like jumping around. To me, that feels like really masterful storytelling. I think it'd be much easier to make a real linear movie. I think I'm not saying anybody could do that, but that just seems like the easier way to go. I think you have to have that encyclopedic knowledge, and he's seeing this big picture, and to be able to do that and then create it on film, I mean, that's just amazing. But it's got to come from a brain like his.
Yes, exactly. And to keep it all in, like to keep it all in line. Like, does he write it linear? Does he write it linear and then mix it up, or like does he write it that way? I'm thinking he writes it that way. That's what I'm guessing, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
But like he wrote True Romance, which is a great movie that's based on his script. They did put that in order. Like I think he had written that with different timelines and stuff, like jumping around, but they put it like in chronological order and story wise, but he said it worked. The way Tony Scott did it, it worked perfectly, and he was very happy with the way that one came out. He did not like what Oliver Stone did with Natural Born Killers, which is another one of his screenplays.
What?
He wrote Natural Born Killers, but Oliver Stone messed with it a little bit, and he was not he lets it be known that he does not like what Oliver Stone did with his script for Natural Born Killers.
I love that movie.
I like it too. But there's a scene supposedly where Mickey looks at another girl, and that's not how he wrote it. He wrote it a relationship where they're the only two in the world, and he's like, and his friends came back and told him, because he didn't even go see the movie, and they're like, he's like, no, Mickey wouldn't do that. He wrote it like the Christian Slater and Arquette character in True Romance, where that's it, they're in love and they are devoted to each other. That was them. And as soon as Mickey was like looking at another girl, it's like that sort of undermined the character a little bit, and
totally.
Yeah. So, but I actually liked because I really liked Robert Downey Jr. in Natural Born Killers. I thought he was a lot of fun in that movie, the character he was playing in that movie. And Rodney Dangerfield in the most un-Rodney Dangerfield role in any movie he was ever in is in Natural Born Killers.
Yes. It's very absurd.
Yep.
Good stuff. Let's see. Can anyone think of other trivia that they want to bring up about Death Proof?
No, I think I covered everything I had anyway.
Oh, I think one cool thing to bring up that you had sent to me, Dave, was that I'm trying to get back to their real names because now I just have their character names. Rosario Dawson and Tracy Toms, who played Abernathy and Kim.
Yes.
You know, they were in
Oh,
Rent
yeah.
together.
They were good friends. Yeah. And they both went into the audition together. Yes. And did the whole
Yeah.
script. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. That was a cool story. And I like the way that Rosario Dawson was telling it, because she got the call from her manager that she got the part, and she was going to ask about, her friend. But she's like, she didn't think her manager would know. And then Tracy Toms called her and is like, so did you hear anything? And she's like, oh, yeah. I heard. And she's getting nervous now. It's like, oh, God, if she didn't get it, I'm not going to sit here and say,
Yeah.
But then they realized they both got it, and they were like ecstatic. And that friendship plays into that.
Exactly.
You buy that friendship. You do.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, one more thing. The stories that they tell are things that actually happened to Zoe Bell on the set of Kill Bill. So that whole thing with like the
ditch?
the pit or something, that I
Yeah.
don't know if that particular, but I think that is an actual story from the set of Kill Bill that happened to Zoe Bell on that.
Oh my
So
God.
they were lifting her real stories for that scene when they're, talking about her.
That is so
That's
cool.
Yeah.
That's another thing I like about the movie. It's kind of like just a love letter to Zoe Bell.
Yes.
And this is like how I even found out who she was.
Yes.
And
And there's
she's
a good
just been-
documentary. Did you see Double Dare? I don't know if you got a chance to watch that one or.
I haven't gotten to watch it yet, but I'm definitely going to. I'm like
It's basically
very intrigued.
about Zoe Bell, and also it follows a woman stuntman or a female stunt person, woman stuntman, Jesus God, a female stunt person who was Linda Carter's stunt person in the Wonder Woman series,
Right.
and following her through. So, and they become friends. Like she becomes a mentor to Zoe Bell. Zoe Bell was in Xena, Princess War. She was the stunt. She was Lucy Lawless's stunt person for Xena. And then that show stopped, and she was sort of out of work for a little bit. And she went over to the United States and met with this woman, and they sort of trained her for different things. And it was through her that made the connection with the guy who was casting the stunts for Kill Bill for Quentin Tarantino. And Tarantino tells a story. He's like, we were in trouble because we had so many stuntmen, some of them who had martial arts skills. These stunt women come in, and none of them were getting it. None of them were getting it. It's like Zoe Bell was literally, we were in big, big trouble if she didn't work out, and she came in and blew them away.
Oh,
Nice.
And so and it obviously sparked a friendship because he wrote that role for Zoe Bell. Like he's like, this is for her. And that's why he put those stories in there and everything. And she's also been she was also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She played Kurt Russell's wife in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And she was in The Hateful Eight, the stagecoach driver, in that sort of flashback moment from The Hateful Eight. Yeah. So she's sort of gotten a second career out of it, which is great.
It is great. So awesome.
Yep.
Tammy, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
No.
All right. Well, then I think we should get into our monstrous mention, where we're just going to further gush about Dave Dr. Shock Becker. Sorry, Dave.
Oh, thank you. I never know how to react though. When Jay gives me those big introductions and he kicks it over to me, I'm like, gee, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say,
I know, right? Well, so far, and obviously if you guest on here more than once, you're not going to always be my monstrous mention.
Okay.
But for your first appearance on the show, it just always kind of feels fitting, and
okay.
Of course we're going to give you your plugs and stuff anyways, but on my monstrous mention section, I just like to highlight somebody who works in the field of horror in one way or another, and inspires me. And so because you're on this episode, it just makes it really easy for me to pick you.
Thank you. I'm glad the video's not on, to be honest with you.
Are you blushing? I hope you're
Probably.
I'm going to make you blush more right now,
All right.
because Dave has been a pillar in our horror community for many years. As we mentioned earlier, he just celebrated his 12-year anniversary on the Land of the Creeps podcast. He was practically a founding father on horror movie podcasts because I think you joined on the second episode. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. I always said that. I always said I was not one of the originals.
You're practically an original.
Right.
Okay.
No.
And you started your DVD Infatuation 2.5K movie challenge, where the tagline on the website is to join me as I attempt to watch 2,500 movies on DVD and Blu-ray, including films from all around the world and spanning as many genres as I can muster.
Yeah.
Check back often. New movies are posted daily. And I
And
believe that this started in 2010. Is that right?
2010, August 7th of 2010 is when I started it. And I'm still posting reviews. I'm up to 2948 or I might be 2950 now. I'm not sure.
Wow.
I'm just posting one a week now. I was trying to get one a day for 2,500 days. 200 days in, I had something happen. I ended up in the hospital, so I lost it then. But I was able to, and then later on, it just started to get more choppy, and I'd sometimes go a week without posting them because I had another health thing later on. But I did have, I think it was 1,658 days in a row where I posted a review.
Damn.
Like one a day for 1,658 days. So I didn't do the 2,500, but I did get that many anyway.
That is amazing.
Yes.
Well, to continue bragging about my friend Dave, I say that you meticulously kept updated and organized all of these reviews on your DVDinfatuation.com website. There's clearly so much love and work and time put into that website, and I recommend that everyone who somehow hasn't checked it out yet go and do so because there are so many fun lists and categories and digital tomes of knowledge. And by the way, he surpassed his initial goal and still adds movie reviews to this day.
Sure, I blew that for you. Sorry.
No,
I spoiled
that's
that for you.
Spoiler alert. Dave is also one of the many horror Avengers on Jay of the Dead's New Horror Movies podcast, which is probably the most epic and ambitious podcast I've ever listened to. And Dave has his own segment on the show titled Dr. Shock's Macabre Film History, where he talks about an old Hollywood story involving someone from the film industry of yesteryear, which is always fascinating. I love those. Those are so fun to listen to, especially with Jay when he's responding.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Jay was really into that one about the outlaw. I mean, he even went and watched that crappy movie I brought up that you can supposedly see him in.
Oh my God, he's so great. I love him.
Oh, Jay's awesome, yeah.
And he's like your biggest fan, which is like makes it even better. So
no, we're his biggest fan, but
okay,
we can make room for Jay. Yeah.
And Dave is also, if I may say so, the main attraction on Jay of the Dead's produced Considering the Cinema podcast, and a co-host on Phantom Galaxy podcast and the Illustrated Fan podcast, which is a kind of branch of Phantom Galaxy where the hosts cover animated movies. Dave also supports a ton of other movie review podcasts like us, and I don't understand where he finds the time and energy. Seriously, Dave is a titan and probably the most knowledgeable person I'll ever have the pleasure of knowing when it comes to movies and Hollywood. Dave Dr. Shock Becker, we salute the fuck out of you.
Well, thank you.
Yay!
Again, thank you. I don't know what more to say, but I appreciate everything. Thank you very much. And the honor was mine. This was a blast. I love talking this movie. I love talking Tarantino in general, but especially this movie because I just think there's so much there. And this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.
I have a little bit of trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Is it Dave trivia or?
It is Dave trivia.
Do it.
So, you're never going to remember this, Dave, but do you remember when you were selling off some of your DVDs like in 2018?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do remember
I
that.
bought some of, I bought, what did I buy? Die Hard.
Oh, okay. That 2-disc set?
Yes,
the
2-disc set. And there was another one too. I don't remember right now what it was, but yeah, so.
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, well, very good. Hopefully they're still working for you.
Yeah, yes, they are. I'm sure.
Nice.
Did you sign all of your DVDs before you sold them?
He didn't, but he sent a nice note and signed that. So.
Oh, that's so cute. I love it.
I kept the note too. Yep. So.
Oh, cool.
Aw. We will, of course, be providing all of Dave's links in the show notes. But Dave, I mentioned your podcast and DVDinfatuation.com. Are there any other projects or plugs that you would like to provide at this time?
Not at this time. You covered them all. I think you got them all. Thank you very much. So yeah.
It was thorough. Yes.
Yep.
But
That's
yes, I will.
we do have. There is actually and I know he's a fan. Greg Bazzelli. There is a new DVD Infatuation that will be dropping soon, where Greg and I covered. We picked 6 movies to cover. Ones we hadn't seen. I think Greg picked 1 or 2 that he had seen before, and we just to talk about them, almost like just hear new discoveries, and just discussing them. And of course, the musical segments. We have that at the end. That's something I really wanted to do. And Jay does such a good job of producing that show. I always say, I couldn't do it without him. I couldn't do it without him. I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, he puts those things together, and he does such a great job with the musical clips and just producing it and everything. And it is considering, it's called the DVD Infatuation Podcast. He had been trying to get me to do it for like 6 or 7 years before that. And I just said, Jay, I don't know how to edit. I don't know how to edit audio. And to be honest, I did go to like communications. I took communications in college, and when it came to editing audio, and that was on reel to reel, I gave it to my friend and said, I don't want to do this shit. So I don't, editing audio is not something I'm really good at, and then putting music in it. And Jay's like, well, it doesn't take long. It only takes like 8 to 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours. Jesus, God, I'd bang my head into a wall if it took an hour. So 8 to 10, no. So Jay finally said, look, I have time. I can edit it for you and put it together for you if you want to do it. I felt bad about that because he does have a lot of other things going on. And I told him, if it ever becomes too much, just, let me know. And then that'll be that. I don't want to tax you any further. I don't want you to feel like you're committed to this. But he's been great with it, and he does such a good job. I mean, his shows sound so awesome. When he puts them together, they are so professional. And what's really cool is he is training his daughter to edit. He is training his daughter to edit, and she actually edited some of the segments for like his show and stuff. And I'm thinking of some of the stuff I said. I'm like, I feel so bad that his daughter listened to some of like our commentary, but she's like, he's getting her to do it, and she's loving it. Like, she's really enjoying it. And she actually said her favorite Avenger is Dave Z, because she says he sounds like a gangster.
He does, yeah.
He has a very Joe Pesci voice.
He's very Joe Pesci, yes. Yep. I love that. That's
but
so
Dave's
funny.
such a great guy. And he's really smart too. I mean, he's very sharp when it comes to movies as well, Dave Z. But he has that Joe Pesci thing going.
Yes, he does.
I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool. I know. And Jay, he's like also a music guy. So of course he's like very good with audio.
He sent me a couple CDs that he made. Like, he wrote the music and everything, and he even like sent these. Every song has a story behind it, and he gave me like this printout of, here's what this song, in this point in my life, and this is what this song is about, and all this other stuff. And yeah, he's very musical, very musical.
Awesome.
That is so cool. I think I've had the pleasure of hearing 1 or 2 of his songs just randomly on a podcast here and there when it fit. And yeah, I'm always like, oh, that's so awesome. I love that. So that is so cool. He is a great guy. You're a great guy. Everyone's a great guy. I love it. Greg Bazzelli is a great guy.
Greg Bazzelli is a great, and Greg Amortis is such a nice guy. I've met Greg. Was up, as a matter of fact, it's going on a year when we went to the horror convention in Atlantic City. They came up, him and Pearl came up, and we all went to and Ian Urza was there, and actually listener Tony Kanopka was there, and my wife and I went down for the weekend to Atlantic City, and that's coming up on a year. I think it was the end of March in 2023 when we went there.
Wow.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll have to send you a video, because we met up with Father Evil, and he actually singled out my wife, who was scared to death of him. She was absolutely terrified of him. When we walked in, because he had contact lenses in that had like these demonic eyes, but he's dressed as a priest. And she's like, oh, like she would sidestep him. She would sort of sidestep him, would never go near him. And I think he picked up on that. And there's a scene where he just goes up and just sort of like singles her out. It's pretty funny. I'll have to send that to you.
Yes, please.
Yes,
that'd be great. Yeah, Tammy and I are hoping to get to conventions eventually too.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. I want to meet everybody one day too.
And I got to meet a few years ago Pastor Matt and Jackson
nice.
at the Joe Bob up the Mahoning Drive-In. The Joe Bob. He was there for the weekend, and I got to meet him. And we went up there, and that's where I got the autograph. Oh God, here we go with names again. It's Linnea Quigley. God, I can't believe I forgot Linnea Quigley's name, because she's one of the ones I've always wanted her autograph. And we went into this little bunker area where they were selling things. And Matt and I didn't even know people were signing autographs. I didn't even look up what was going on this weekend. And I'm in there looking at these different albums they're selling and posters they're selling. And Matt goes, "Oh, there's Linnea Quigley." I go, and I turn around, and it was like this sort of what the hell moment. She's literally like 5 feet away from me. And I said to my wife, "I know it's $40. I need to get an autograph."
Yeah.
And my wife's like, "That's fine, but none of the ones that are covered with Post-it notes." So I had to get a bikini shot.
That is so funny. Yeah, I've never been like a big, I'm super into celebrities or something.
I haven't
autographs,
either, but with her, that was she was literally on my short list of people that I wanted to. And what do I do? And I talked about this on Land of Kids. I go, "Oh, I'm such a big fan of yours." I'm like, Jesus Christ, like she hasn't heard that 10,000 times already. I couldn't think of anything new to bring up.
Oh, it's always like that. I met a lot of famous people, and it's always kind of like,
I just, what else do you say? You're not going to come up with anything new that they haven't heard before. So
yeah. But yeah, I would definitely get a Linnea Quigley autograph and a Barbara Crampton. I think everyone knows that I'm
Barbara
completely
Crampton,
obsessed
definitely.
with Barbara Crampton.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. I definitely appreciate them. And I'm enjoying your show. Keep it up. And I really I enjoy listening. And this will be the one episode I don't listen to. I never listen to myself. I just can't do it. I cannot go back and listen to myself. I think of all the podcasts I've ever done, I've listened to 2.
Wow.
And I think there might have been times where Jay and maybe Wolfman took advantage of that, maybe cut out some things I said. I'd never know because I don't listen to them. I'd never know what was cut out.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I have to edit the podcast, so I'm forced to listen to myself.
I know, yeah. And that's probably another reason why I could never edit DVD Infatuation, because I couldn't listen back. I'd cut the whole thing down. It'd be a 3-minute podcast, probably.
That is so funny. Although this might be a cringy fact for everybody, but I actually have always still listened to the Horror Cast, because before joining the Horror Cast, that was my favorite podcast.
Oh, okay.
And so when I joined, I was like, wait, so now what do I do? Did not listen to my favorite podcast? So I still listen. Yeah. I still listen to every episode.
That's when Jay left Horror Movie Podcast, and Josh and I went to Joel, Gilman Joel, and we said, we need you to step in if you would, please. Because we didn't have a backup. It was either Joel or it was going to be the 2 of us. But we really thought that 3-person dynamic is what made Horror Movie Podcast as good as it was. And we didn't want it to just be the 2 of us, but we had no backup. We had nobody else in mind. It was just, and if Joel said no, it was just going to be the 2 of us. But he said he would. But then he said, the only thing that sucks is now I can't listen anymore. I won't be able to listen to Horror Movie Podcast anymore. And I've heard every episode.
Right. Yeah, you guys should just keep listening anyways.
Right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Horror Through Her Eyes. Tammy, would you like to lead us through our outro, please?
Sure. So, like you just said, that's going to do it for this episode of Horror Through Her Eyes. Next time, we will be reviewing the novel Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll with another wonderful guest, fellow weirdo Christine Lind, who is a listener who is very active in our Facebook group. Yes, we're very excited about that. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Join our Horror Through Her Eyes podcast group page. Email us at horrorthroughhereyes@yahoo.com. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at Horror Through Her Eyes Pod with an _ between each word. Follow us on TikTok at Horror Through Her Eyes Pod. Follow us on Letterboxd at Horror Her Eyes. And follow our YouTube channel at Horror Through Her Eyes Pod. As we bid you farewell, we hope you enjoyed your time with us on Horror Through Her Eyes. It has been a blast diving into the depths of dread with you. And until next time, remember to live deliciously.
Awesome.
Yay, live deliciously.
Very cool. Thank you. That was a lot of fun. I had a great time.
Oh,
Thank you, Dave.
thank you, Dave.
No, it was my pleasure. Really, it was so much. It's so fun getting to talk in this movie and getting to talk to you both. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry the video started crapping out there.
That's
but
okay.
I know it has something to do with my kids and them damn games. I know it has something to do with that. But when I
It
turned the
kinda
video
always
off, it got
seems-
better. It slowed down a couple times, but it was a lot better.
It seems like an issue once we get more than like 2 people on a lot of the time. So
Okay.
it's not just you.
And it's a Skype thing, but you know what? It's free. So, it's like, who are we going to complain to?
Yeah.
We're going to say, we're not going to pay for this anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, wait.
That's what I was kind of thinking earlier when Tammy was saying, Spotify doesn't let people submit reviews, but we get to like host our podcast through them for free.
Yeah.
So
Mhm,
I guess we can't really complain about it.
Exactly, right.
Well, I can still complain if I want to. So there.
True.
That's right. It's your party. You can cry if you want to.
My shirt's, you can't see it. It says wait, hold on. It says
It's
Oh, what the
there
heck?
you
I know, right?
That's crazy.
go. Very cool.
My shirt says something about Hellraiser in Japanese.
Oh, well, okay, you're cooler than me.
No, that's pretty cool. We just covered Hellraiser on Jay of the Dads. That's one of the Dave Z's top 200 movies. The 200 that everybody voted on, and that was one of the, I think, in the top 30 or something. That Hellraiser. It's my 5th favorite horror movie of all time.
Wow.
It's the only. I just realized this. I mentioned it on Jay, and I don't think anybody gave a damn, but it was sort of big to me because as I was looking at my list of top 10, it's the only one that was released when I was out of high school.
Oh, wow.
Every other one on my, I either wasn't alive or I was still in school,
Right. Yeah.
And like I brought that up and it just sort of died there. Nobody says like, oh, okay. It's like, well, I know you guys don't give a shit, but I thought it was pretty cool.
It's
You're
interesting.
you're a man after my own heart right there for sure. So.
Yeah. I gotta say, I missed the 80s probably more than I did when I was living through them. You look back on it, it was such a great time. That's another great line from Death Proof when they're talking about them being gearheads, and Lee's like, oh, I love Pretty in Pink, and Abernathy's like, oh, you didn't watch John Hughes movies? She goes, of course I watch John Hughes movies. I'm a girl, but I also watched these other movies.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh, Pretty in Pink. Or no, that one's okay. 16 Candles. Problematic.
Oh yes, that is problematic. A lot of stuff that that you sort of overlooked back then, or that was funny back then. Yeah, I mean, you look at it now, and it's a little.
I think that one particularly was hard to revisit.
Yes, it can be. The really one that's hard to revisit is a movie I love because I'm such a big Audrey Hepburn fan, and that's Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it's because of the Mickey Rooney character in that.
Yeah.
That one's way out there, and it's funny, I became a Breakfast at Tiffany's fan because I woke up late one night. I had a little TV in my room, and this is soon after I saw The Exorcist, which scared the living hell out of me.
Yeah.
And I was flipping through channels, and I caught about 10 seconds of The Exorcist, and this is about midnight. So I had to put on something else to purge that so I could go to sleep. And I ended up watching the entirety of Breakfast at Tiffany's on another channel. Just because I saw 10 seconds of The Exorcist and it absolutely terrified me. It was a late 10 seconds in the movie.
That is so awesome. I miss getting that feeling.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I think the last time I got that feeling was with Hereditary when I came home from the movie theater. I was like, I think I need to watch something before I go to sleep.
That one movie that really unnerved me, and I think it's because I started at like 11:30 at night, was The Descent.
Oh,
when I saw that in the theater, that really, because you're already on edge because of the claustrophobia, and they don't know this cave system. They're crawling where they can barely fit through these openings, and you don't even know if it dead ends up ahead or if it's leading to anything. It could get smaller and go nowhere, and then she's jammed in there. You've got all that going, and then here come these monsters on top of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's one
Yeah,
we're definitely going to have to cover on
That's that
our
would be another really
podcast.
good one for your
Yeah.
podcast, because the whole cast is female. I don't know that there's any other than the husband at the beginning, and he doesn't last very long.
Right.
The whole cast is women, and I think that would be a really good one for your podcast.
Yeah. Plus, I've just been wanting to rewatch it, so it gives me a good excuse.
Yes. And don't watch the American ending. When I saw it, it was the American ending when she's in the car and the ghost appears, and that's when it ended here. But there is an extra scene from the UK release of it. That's really good.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, there is an extra scene that goes beyond that.
Okay.
That ends up being, I won't spoil it, but
okay. All right.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I knew about it, but not until after I'd already seen it. So
yeah,
it'll be a good
found
chance
out
for me to go. Yeah.
I found out when I got the Blu-ray. And that's when I found out that they said, the U.S. ending or UK ending, I think it was. I go, oh shit, I want to watch. Maybe it was the DVD. I said, I want to watch the UK ending, because I know what the U.S. ending is, and that scene's still in there, but it's not the end of the movie.
Right. Very
right.
cool.
Very cool.
All right.
All right. Oh my God, it must be so late for you guys.
Oh yeah, it's after midnight. See, and that's what I said. I said, oh, as long as I'm done by 11:30, but I'm the one who won't shut the hell up. So I can't blame anybody. I'm the reason why we're going over. So.
No, you're totally fine. It doesn't even feel
It does
like
not.
that.
No, it doesn't.
No, it didn't.
Been
it
really
did fly
fun.
by. I'm shocked when I looked and I saw that it's already Thursday. Yeah, that's crazy.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you. Yeah,
much.
this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. It was great.
It was a ton of fun.
All right.
Good
And
night,
I will be back on at some point. And I'm going to mention it to Jay too. I'll see if I can get Jay to join you guys as well.
Oh my God, yes.
I would lose my shit, but yes, please.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, good talking. You have a good night.
You too.
You too.